This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
What you can see is a darker morning and a very cold morning as well. It seems unusually cold for this time of the year. The wind has been blowing quite a bit and it's been not very pleasant at all, actually, if I'm honest. Now, my name is Tristan. On camera, I've got BK this morning, and he's doing his first solo drive. So hopefully he'll have a good time, and you all need to be very nice to him as he goes about trying to kind of get everything sorted. So far, though, I think he's going to be just fine. Now, remember, we are coming to you live from South Africa, and that means that we want to hear from all of you, and you can do that on #SafariLive or @FC on the YouTube chat. And the sort of plan for this morning is that we're going to try to follow up on some tracks that I had last night on my way home at the end of our TV show. When we were sitting with those elephants, we kind of came out and onto the road, and there were tracks for wild dogs everywhere where we had just been, and on top of our vehicle tracks. So literally there were dogs running around us and we didn't even know about it. So we're going to try and see if we can follow up on them and see if they're around. It is a very windy kind of start to the day, which generally isn't the best game viewing weather. But you never know. We take what we're going to get. So that's the plan. Hopefully the sun's going to come up soon and warm us up, because the wind that is blowing at the moment has got an icy cold feel to it, which is really not very pleasant at all. It kind of feels as though it's coming off the Arctic at the moment, in comparison to what we were feeling last week. Really just doesn't kind of compare at all. So the tracks that we had for those dogs, it was interesting because obviously Steve saw dogs yesterday afternoon, and that was that Hamilton's pack, and so there's 18 dogs in that. With the tracks that we had coming down the road, in fact, I might be able to find us a track somewhere here that we can actually see. It's been a few eddies have walked here, so it'll be a bit tricky, but those tracks were for nowhere near that many dogs. It looked like for only 3 or 4 dogs that were running down here, so I don't know if it was a section of those dogs that we saw. So if you have a look in the road, there's going to be tracks kind of running down the left hand side. So to the left a little bit for me, BK, a little bit to the left, so other way, yeah, go, more. There, those are the ones there. So you see there's small ones in the tire tracks there. Now those small tracks that you're seeing, they're quite nondescript. Maybe the one right at the top of the frame is probably your best bet there. Those are the tracks that I'm talking about. So those were from sort of early last night. Now the problem that we have with dogs at this time is that it's full moon at the moment, and so full moon, dogs tend to run quite a bit, and they're not really animals that are going to sit too still. So they could be quite far, but it's definitely not 18 wild dogs that ran here. So I wonder if maybe the Investec breakaway pack hasn't come back onto this area, so we might have had 2 packs of dogs in the area, or it could have just been a little kind of split off from the Hamiltons, and they were just trying to find each other and kind of ran that direction. So we're going to just check, we're going to try and see where they went, and maybe we will get lucky and they will be around. Failing all of that, I think we'll just take a bumble and see what else is out there around. Maybe a little spotted cat, maybe some ellies. The ellies last night, I thoroughly enjoyed them, so that will be good. Right, now we're going to carry on southwards, and as I carry on southwards, I can see off to my western side that there is a glorious full moon, and Stephen Falconbridge has got it lined up, and so he wants to say good morning and show you.
And we have stopped to enjoy the sinking of the full moon. Good morning, everybody. What a beautiful day it is. It's really fresh out here this morning. We have got jackets on and considering even putting on a second layer. I don't know what's going on in the middle of January. There's some cold front that's obviously followed the rainy warm front. That, well, we didn't get any of the rain. Good morning, everybody. My name is Steve, joined on camera again by Davisito, who's back from leave, feeling very fresh and energized. And well, we're going to go out and see what we can find on sort of the western side. Obviously, Tristan and myself are going to work in partnership to see what we can find. Obviously, if wild dogs have come back in again, they do require a little bit of effort to find them. We're going to just bumble around As we see the moon disappearing behind the silver cluster leaf trees over there. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, very good. Now we're going to get on moving. Okay, so Tristan's just called in that there's some tracks coming up towards this direction. I'll just let him know that we'll give him a hand. Thanks, Trist. Would you like me to check the western side of quarantine, or should I continue on Zoe's? The radio is quite helpful because you can maximize your area of movement. So his tracks are all over the place. He's trying to figure out exactly where they've gone to. So we'll continue on the road that we initially thought we would be. Okay, Kobid, we'll keep on quarantine on Zoe's and we'll keep you posted. So, had the wild dogs yesterday. It was so awesome to spend time with them. I didn't manage to count all 18. They were kind of in the thickets when we eventually found them. And then Tristan on his way home found wild dog tracks just down the road here on top of his vehicle tracks before the TV show. So whether it's another pack that has come in or maybe that pack had kind of split up a little bit during the day. Generally, when you've got a pack of 18, the food demands is very, very high, and well, an impala just doesn't really cut it. So they probably will have split up a bit as they started to feed slightly differently. Very demanding youngster. We found him just before you guys came to us. Okay, so he's got the tracks going the other way now, going down towards Twin Dam. So maybe, Darby, we should go check Gallagher, eh? Okay, so we're going to see wild dogs are on the property, folks. It's important that we try and find them because, well, they are very, very special animals indeed, and I wouldn't mind getting to smell them again this morning. Maybe Darby can give me an idea of what he thinks they smell like, because I was trying to describe the smell yesterday. Okay, well, it seems as if we are having some signal issues this morning, so let's go over to Tristan for an update on his wild dog tracks. Whoo, let's go. Right, now, I'll see you. We are still kind of checking around. What we've noticed is that the tracks that I had last night went, and then I was kind of checking them just again because they looked as though they were a lot more tracks than what I saw last night, and noticed that some of them are now coming back north again on top of my tracks from last night. They've then come, it looks like they've gone towards the dam cam, so I don't know if anybody picked up any sign of dogs on the dam cam last night, but that's where they look like they run to. Pilots here that are looking awfully about life, so we're just going to bypass these guys because unfortunately when it comes to dog tracking you can't really waste too much time. They can cover such ground that it's very tricky to kind of leave them for too long in terms of kind of trying to track them. Now I believe none of you saw any dogs on the dam cam, which is interesting because it looks like they've gone straight there, unless of course they have not arrived at the dam cam and we're going to find them now as they do. The tracks look pretty good, I must be honest. See, they were milling about here as well. Just trying to check the tracks as we go. It looks like only for 2 or 3 dogs, which means it could be the breakaway pack. They could be around 2 males, but there's tracks all over here as well. I just want to check going forward. I see a few hyena tracks too, so often you'll find when you follow wild dog tracks that hyena tracks are also in amongst all of it because they basically kind of follow them in case they get something to eat. So Lee, could these wild dogs be creating a larger territory
Difficult to say because we don't know which dogs these are. But this time of year, it's very common to see dogs running around and moving quite a lot. They're not bound by any young animals in a den, and so therefore they can kind of move into different areas and check, and it'll all be to do with food availability as well as potential mates. The alpha male and females typically start to try and kind of vie for position and try and kind of get themselves sorted. But I mean, it could be an expansion of territory, but I don't think so. I think this is more them just exploring their areas and trying to find food more than anything else. They only really become fiercely kind of territorial about what's going on when they start to mate, and then from there they kind of look for den sites, and then they'll become a lot more localized than what they are now. Okay, so all the tracks are pointing now southwards once again down Twin Dams, so I think they must have come east and then turned south again, which is why you did not see them on the dam cam. There's also, like I say, hyenas that are following them around in this area too, so we're gonna try and double check, hoping that we can find these guys maybe on a kill somewhere. That's the kind of easiest way to find dogs, is one, because they make a lot of noise, and two, because it keeps them busy for a few minutes, and so they don't run so much. We know how quickly they can move. But we'll see. The problem is I'm not really sure where the dogs ran yesterday morning for Jamie to find them. Now, sorry, Stefan, if you can just repeat the name for me. I got the question, just the name that I need. Becky. I thought that's what you said, but it's morning. We're still waking up a little bit. Becky, how large is the territory for these wild dogs? Again, it's a tricky one to answer because what you'll find with wild dogs is that they will cover huge amounts of land and ground depending on the area. So it's all about densities of dogs. It's much like lions and leopards, is that their territories expand to a point where they meet resistance. And so here in the Sabi Sands area, at the moment, currently, if the Lower Sabi pack around, we can potentially have 4 different packs running around in the Sabi Sands. Now, of course, those are not all going to... They were all over the place here. I think they were chasing hard on, but anyway. I keep going south. So the packs here have all got 4 there's 4 of them that are rotating and overlapping and moving around one another. And so the territories within the Kruger Park system, if you're down in the southern parts of the park, are much smaller than if you go, let's say, up into the northern part. So to give you an idea, in the sort of southern section of the park, I think there are now 17 or 18 packs, whereas in the north section of the park there are 2. And so those guys in the north, they're using much larger, much bigger tracts of land than what the individuals this side of the world are using. And so how big those territories are is difficult to say. Hamilton's pack is probably running at the moment, I would say a good 8,000 hectares, maybe more. So what's that, 16,000 acres, around that area. All right, well, we're going to keep seeing what's been going on here and whether or not we can find these little puppies. In the meantime, though, off you go to Jamie Patterson, who's out and about on walk and wants to say hello.
Good morning, and welcome to the Sunrise Safari. My name is Jamie, and this morning Sebastian is on camera with me. And we're not late. We didn't oversleep. We were up and about, but unfortunately, at this time of year, starting at 5 o'clock means that it is still dark, and that's usually not safe to walk in when there's all sorts of animals moving about in the darkness. It's also very windy this morning, so I've got Herbie with me. As most of you know, Herbie looks after us while we're on walk. Make sure that we don't go bumbling into an elephant or something like that, because we're so busy talking that we're not looking. And by and large just keeps us well and truly safe, and of course helps us to look for things as well. Now this morning it is very, very windy. That's dangerous weather to go walking through thickets. First of all, it upsets animals like elephants, of course, and buffalo. They can't hear you coming, they can't smell you, and they get decidedly grumpy. So what we're going to do is we're going to stick on the open area of quarantine, which is the exact opposite of what I want to do, because it's windy and it's chilly, and I'd like to go somewhere where it's not as windy. But unfortunately that option is not open to us. It also means that the little insects and things hide away. So walks like this on a windy morning can be a little challenging, but that's okay. We're going to go turning over all sorts of logs like this one and search for scorpions and millipedes and all sorts of other little things. There's lots of flowers about. We'll look for flower mantids, snails, you name it. We'll try and find it here on the open area. Brr. And you have the additional joy of waiting to see whether or not the fingers on my right hand turn blue, as my white cuff feels a little bit like a blood pressure cuff, but all the others are too big for me. I'd especially made one, and it let's just say that Steph apparently thinks that I have arms that are roughly the size of brooms. So that's what we're going to do on this charming, chilly morning safari. We're just going to be searching for all sorts of little things. We've also got to be careful on quarantine, because as you can see, the trees here are all marula trees, or mostly marula trees. There's a couple of large terminalias or silver cluster leaves. And that, of course, because the trees are fruiting, it means that the elephant bulls are frequenting quarantine as well. The reason that it is called quarantine clearings is that once upon a time there used to be animals quarantined here. Depending upon whom you ask, it's either the cows or the wildebeest. No, sorry, Michael. Michael wants to know if there are any updates on the Juma clan. I'm afraid not. Dylan's on leave. I'll try and chat to some of the guides, the other guides in the area, and find out if they've been past the den at any time recently. Of course, we're still waiting for the day where they call us and say they've moved, and we can frantically go around and check all the other hyena dens if that is the case. So absolutely, we'll give you an update as soon as we have one. But for now, I haven't heard anything at all. So we'll just wait. We'll wait to see what they say. I suspect now if June has cubs, I think that she's probably moved them now to the communal den. All right, we live in hope that the wild dogs are going to come dashing across quarantine clearings. While we wait for that to happen, Tristan's being far more proactive, and he's on the search for them.
Well, Jamie, I'm hoping that the wild dogs come to you, because I've lost their track now on Twin Dams Road, and so they were all over the place, and then it seems as though they're kind of mostly going up and down towards quarantine. So just now checking, well, I'm going to go up towards Vulture's Nest and then around onto Central just to check they didn't go over the Milwaukee. But it doesn't look like, I think even I'm going to reassess and say there's maybe even only 2 of these animals that are running around here. That's what from the tracks that I can see, unless they were all split and hunting, and I'm just finding tracks of different parts of the pack. So I'm just listening to Aubrey's update, because he says he's got tracks for a leopard where we're heading. So not exactly what we're looking for, but anyway, we're going to try and see if we can find one of these animals. They're obviously around. Which way they've ended up going, I'm not quite sure. The interesting thing is they're obviously running up and down towards quarantine, so maybe they were either hunting there or they're trying to find the pack. Generally with dogs, they'll kind of get into a direction, and normally they kind of utilize that direction and run with it for quite some time. But when they lose each other in hunts, and when they're trying to find each other, then you can often see them going back and forth and up and down, and to try and kind of circle the area and find one another. We didn't hear any contact calling though, so I don't think it's too sort of serious in terms of them being apart, but no tracks coming down here. So one of the tough parts about tracking wild dogs is that it's almost pointless to track them on foot, and the reason why is that they just move much faster than you're going to be able to spot tracks when you're walking. Something like a lion or a leopard, they tend to walk quite quickly, but not that bad. I mean, you'll walk at a very similar speed to what they will, especially if they're just kind of ambling and plodding along. Whereas dogs is this constant little trot that they have, and so, like I say, being on foot is almost pointless. What are these tracks here now? So, hold on, let's have a look quickly. Didn't see very nice tracks here. Where did I see them? They were coming down the road at one point. No, nothing major there. So, child of the universe? No, dogs are meat eaters. They love going after all things meaty. So most of what they eat, or 99.9% of what they're eating is meat. I say 99.9% because they will also sometimes feed, well, not feed, but they seem to bite millipedes. So whether they're getting some sort of nutrition out of them, I'm not quite sure, but they'll grab millipedes, bite them, and then they kind of chew them for a bit and spit out the exoskeleton and roll in it. So I'm not really sure why they would do that. Maybe it's something to do with pest control, use the cyanide of the millipede to maybe potentially get rid of certain things. I'm not sure. Maybe it's to do with the scent story. I don't know, but it's interesting behavior to watch. It's not something you see all that often, but I have seen it quite a few times. In fact, the time that I saw it the most was actually on Triple M. And there was a pack the one day that they must have murdered about 30 millipedes, just walking around and biting all of them. So the poor millipedes had a tough time of it, unfortunately. Right, now, still no tracks this side, which means that these dogs, I wonder if they aren't still very close to where we were. The problem is there's lots of relaxed impalas. Now, normally where dogs are, impalas do not do very well, and certainly are not very relaxed, and so probably not really a good indication that they are still around. It's also to work out which tracks are fresher, but those ones that go down towards Twin Dams look to be the freshest. They come up from Philemon's and then turn down towards Twin Dams, so hoping that we can find them somewhere here. I think it's good that Steve's on the western side of the reserve, because he's going to be able to check if they go on that side and he might pick up tracks, but we can kind of focus on the sort of central and eastern parts, and between the two of us, one of us hopefully will bump into them. And that's the thing with dogs, it's often nice to have a team kind of following up on them, because one of you might not see them, but that's okay, because if both of you kind of spread out and check the areas, much more likelihood of finding them. Right, now we're going to be still following up on dogs and all other things that are around, and Jamie is taking a brief moment to stop looking for dogs and, well, focus on something that has a cat in its name.
I'm definitely, honestly, not really actively looking for dogs, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I'm out in the open area of quarantine looking at the little things and hoping that the dogs come running through to us. That is essentially how I'm going to look for wild dogs this morning. I'm going to wait for them to arrive with us. It is still blowing a little bit of a gale out here. It's made every animal on high alert. We'll talk about the caterpillars in a moment, but just in case they decide to run, the wildebeest and the impala are all looking across in our direction. That, of course, is because when you're out on foot, it is a shape that the animals instinctively associate with a potential danger. So animals respond very, very differently to us on foot than they do when we are in a vehicle. So the wildebeest are alarm calling, they're snorting in our direction, and as are the impala every now and again. Now that is because they're on high alert, because it is windy. They're actually quite used to people walking about in this area. Animals, of course, can learn to overcome their instincts if nothing is a threat to them. and they will relax and become comfortable in the presence of humans. But this morning, they've obviously had quite a tough morning. Now, caterpillars, of course, do not in any way, shape or form get afraid. Well, maybe they do. I suppose we don't really know what they feel. Who knows what emotions run through the tiny, tiny mind of a caterpillar? And Herbie tells me that these are the caterpillars of the African migrant butterflies, also known as the African vagrant, depending upon who you ask or consult about them. There's at least 3 here, and it's kind of like playing one of those games of, I don't know if they still make them, I assume that they do, those books that you got as kids, where you had to find the hidden animals, and they were, they were drawn into part of the picture or whatever it happened to be. I'm trying to remember what the one I had was. It was the Animals A to Z by Graham Base. I don't know how I remembered that, but that's what this reminds me of. Caterpillars all hidden. Now, what's fascinating about this is obviously if all caterpillars were to eat one particular plant, there would be none of that plant left. So each and every single species of butterfly knows somehow to go and lay its eggs very close to, if not on, the source of food that the caterpillar utilizes of that particular species. What I find fascinating about that is insects are not... They're highly advanced in their own way, but they're not exactly something that you think of as being capable of doing the crossword puzzle on a Sunday morning. Now, sometime when that caterpillar pupates, it turns into mush. All its cells rearrange themselves and turn it into a butterfly, which then obviously emerges from the cocoon. Now, somehow that butterfly has it programmed into its DNA that it must choose a particular plant species to go and lay its eggs near. And then I find, I often marvel at the sheer ability of insects to do things that we don't think of as complex because we're human. And I mean, we know that babies need milk and whatever else it happens to be. And in the case of baby squirrels, Brenty, they really don't eat granola when they're only a few days old and still don't have their fur. But we know we can reason that way. But for an insect to be able to know exactly where it needs to go and what it needs to do, and that applies not just to caterpillars, it applies to things like borer beetles, or that the fact that dung beetles are programmed in the way that they're programmed to give their offspring the best possible start in life. I mean, you can imagine the dung ball cereal box, high in protein, high in vitamin, I don't know what dung would be high in, probably not very much, fiber, high in fiber would be on a dung beetle's cereal box. It's just an interesting thing. I have to confess there is a good chance we might abandon this walk and go to the tent. There is a very, very good chance. It gives us more scope to actually help out with the drive, and also at the same time... Oh, there is something I want to show you. Look here. What is this called again? Man, these little droppings, they're caterpillar droppings, and they are called caterpillar... Oh, for goodness sake, I promise you I knew this until I started thinking about it. A caterpillar... Frass! Got a caterpillar frass. Thank you very much, Stefan. I'm very impressed. Well done. 10 out of 10. Caterpillar frass. That's exactly what I was trying to remember. Very, very clearly an indicator of the fact that a tree is currently home to caterpillars of a particular species. You'll see it under silver cluster leaves. You'll see it all over the show. I'm not sure I can get up, Seb. I think I'm actually now frozen in place. I'm really just keenly looking at this tree in this vain hope that something's going to present itself to me. But unfortunately, that's not the case at all. Nothing is presenting itself to me. I'll tell you what I can show you. Creak. Can you hear my knees creaking? I'm sure Seb feels the same. That was our fireside chat. It's looking rather sad, isn't it? I think that Tristan himself missed the glory days of the fireside chat. I wonder if he feels sad that he did.
Right, now, We are still trying to find our dogs at the moment, but we're going to take a moment just to appreciate the fact that we've got a sun that is starting to rise off on our eastern side at the moment. So there you go. You can see just on the sort of eastern horizon is a beautiful sun that is starting to come up. And so that's a very welcome sight, because what that's going to mean is that we are soon going to get a nice amount of warmth coming from that sun. So hopefully it'll be a lot warmer than what it is now. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you guys is in front of us at the moment, there's two birds that are walking around. So there's two guinea fowls, and a lot of you might have noticed that we've been seeing guinea fowls of late, but that there's only two of them together at a time. So at this time of the year is when the guinea fowls breed and they pair off. And so normally you'll find flocks of them, where you'll be able to see kind of groups of 10, 20, 30 guinea fowl together. But at this time of the year, it all changes, and those guinea fowl pair off into little mating pairs, and they'll mate. And so wherever you go, you'll find just little sort of groups of two. And actually, it's a really nice time to have guinea fowls like this, because one is they separate out into a much bigger area, which means when predators walk, you hear them a lot more because they're being disturbed, obviously, because they're in different groupings. And the second thing is that these guys, because they're mating, don't make much noise, unless, of course, there's a predator. So when you hear these guys calling, often or long predator, just prior to this though, it's a bit of a pain, because they will make a serious amount of noise prior to this so that they can actually get a mate and start to pair off correctly in trees and just call all day long, and you think that there's, but in fact it's actually just guinea fowls trying to oh, doggies, where are you? They've been running around all over the place, except where we can't find anything going east. Seems as though Steve hasn't found anything going west, because, well, he's back at the moment. Issues with Jigger, so I can sympathize with Steve. I had Rusty for a few days, and, well, that was less than ideal. Somehow Rusty all of a sudden last night for a TV show decided it's going to behave itself with Emma and allow comms and signal, but would not want to do game drive radio yesterday afternoon. Decided it's not going to allow me to speak on the game drive radio, which is quite interesting. So Rusty has been a delight, and it's nice to be in Wendy, where signal works and radios work and various kind of systems are a-okay. It allows for at least much more relaxed kind of drive, that's for sure. Right, now it might seem like deja vu at the moment, because we are on the same road, and you would be correct, we are still on Twin Dams Road. We just come back on the loop just to try and see if I can figure out where these trucks go, because we lost them quite quickly, and so I want to just try and see if I can find them again. In the meantime though, I'm going to send you back across to Jamie and see if she's got any more updates on her side.
Alright, as we battle off the gremlins left, right and centre, we are missioning in the direction of the tent so that we can help everybody else. Steve is struggling at the moment with signal. Tristan obviously is as well. So we sincerely apologise for the issues that we have this morning. Now, I was about to fling myself down upon this termite mound in the vague hope that it was warm, but unfortunately it is an inactive termite mound and then absolutely ice cold. But also, I don't want to ruin these tracks, because it's actually very, very cool. Because an elephant, by the looks of things, and there's a whole load of older elephant tracks here, an elephant actually came and had a really jolly good scratch up on the top of the termite mound. And you can see, I don't know if it was its trunk here, because unless it was scratching, unless it was a very big elephant, which it could have been one of the big bulls that have been hanging around out here. Oh, I'm fine. Unless it was one of the big males, he might have scratched his belly, but the tracks look like something sweeping around there. Can you sort of see that, Seb? Yeah, it looks like, I think it was the trunk. And they're partly at least responsible for the collapse of this old termite mound. Bits of the side have fallen down. Now, termite colonies have a natural life expectancy of around about 30 years. Ah, there you go. Paula wants to know how I can tell it's inactive. First of all, it's the temperature. Paula. Sorry, Paula. It's inactive because there's no heat at all coming out of the vents, which you would expect on a cold day. In winter, for an active termite mound, if you stick your hand at any one of these exits, then you would find that there's warmth coming up out of it. Secondly, nothing's been fixed. So this is actually almost the inner, not the inner shell of a termite mound, but it is the inner vents that are coming through. Now that, of course, active termite mounds do get broken, but they get broken in a way that the termites then come out and repair it instantly. So what you'd see was wet sort of mud. It's a combination of dirt and the termites' gluey saliva that they put together, and you'd see that all around here where it's been damaged. It's just also got that feel to it. I mean, if you look at it, even though the elephants have done a number on it, you can sense that there's no real termite activity. It's also not hot, as you may or may not have noticed based on our moaning. It's not very warm at all, which also suggests to me that, in fact, the termites would be out and about at this time of day, and they're not. What is that? My word. Oh my goodness. That is absolutely amazing and disgusting at the same time. Seb's not having it. Oh my goodness. Well, we know why this elephant was so thoroughly determined to have a jolly good scratch. That, ladies and gentlemen, is my fingernail. And that is a tick. That is one of the biggest. I mean, the last time I saw ticks this big was when I was relocating elephants. That's the last time I saw a tick this big, or rhino. And the animal was anesthetized and it was attached to them. That is absolutely disgusting. And quite cool at the same time. Now, this is a fully mature, I'd refer to it as an elephant tick. I'm not sure what the species is. It's probably one of the massive bont ticks or something like that. I know them as elephant ticks, but let me just flip him over so you can have a jolly good look. That is truly, truly disgusting. And that's just from a human perspective. I suppose in a way it's fascinating, but the thing is that I know that this thing has caused a massive amount of discomfort. Imagine. Now, everybody says that not everybody, some people say that elephant skin is too thick for the jaws of a tick to penetrate. That is not true. There are certain species of tick, like this one, that looks like a slightly sour grape. I mean, it really does. It's the size of a grape. And there are certain species of ticks that attach themselves to the very sensitive areas of an elephant, whether it's around sort of between the back legs, or under the tail, or between the front legs. Max says it looks like a tooth. It would be a very big tooth. It does kind of, though. It's got a sort of a shiny whiteness to it. Oh, imagine having that buried in your skin. I know that they're not really, it's a way of reducing competition. So there's different size ticks for different size animals. So a tick like that wouldn't really attach itself to you, but if it did, I feel as though you would feel the effects very shortly afterwards. I think I would probably turn into a raisin myself. I'm quite a small person. Become instantly anemic from blood loss. Jeepers, it's large. And this elephant has managed to displace it. I don't know what to do with you, really. I'm just going to leave you here. It looks as though it's ready to breed. It's reached the almost end of its life cycle. I don't know if it's already mated and it's not yet ready to lay its eggs, or if it's a male. I'm not sure, but it's definitely at the end of its...
It would be nice to see it under the microscope.
It would be nice to see it under the microscope. Does that mean I have to pick it up? It really does, doesn't it? I do. You're right. No, I'll pick it up. I'm not that much of a baby. It just grosses me out. It's full of blood. It is so squidgy full of blood. I can actually see through it. I'm going to take it to the microscope. I'm going to be a big girl. and I'm going to take it to the microscope. It's got a horrible feel to it. It's squishy, and it feels like I'm scared I'm going to pop it and just end up with elephant blood all over my hands. They do also carry disease. They carry certain types of rickettsia, tick bite fever. I'm immune to most types of tick bite fever from this area. Seb would be as well, because he spent a lot of time here. It's the new members of staff that have to watch out for potential tick bite fever. Okay. All right. Just don't think about it. Just don't think about it. Just don't think about it. It's so squishy. It feels like a grape. Okay. All right. We're going to go set up the tent. We're going to have a jolly good look at this this thing under the microscope. You okay there, Seb? Walked into a hole. So while we head across and do that, let's send you across to Tristan, who hopefully has battled off the gremlins.
Well, that's a good idea, Jamie. It's always nice to actually look at those small insects under microscopes, particularly the mouth parts of ticks. They're like a little harpoon that goes inside you, which is pretty crazy. But I'm sure lots of you are probably a bit creeped out by said ticks. It's not the most favorite animal in the world, is it? Many people are not huge fans of ticks at all. I know I'm not, and neither is Jamie. Both of us get absolutely hammered by ticks regularly out here, and so we try and avoid them as much as possible. But hopefully we're going to find a tick shortly, but not by itself, but on a wild dog. That's the plan, at least. So far, I can't find any further tracks leading away from those last ones that we had, but there's so many impalas around there that I don't think the dogs can be, unless they're lying down sleeping, I don't think that they're actually moving around too much there. So it's tricky. I must have missed the tracks somewhere crossing over, but I couldn't find anything on Central, Vulture's Nest, Ingwe Alley. It's just on Philemon's, Wahlberg's and Twin Dams. So I don't know, maybe they went further north. Once Steve gets his self sorted out with Jigger, hopefully he'll be able to give us a hand, and maybe between the two of us we'll get this right. So what I've done now is I've just come south because I wanted to check Philemon's in case they kind of went back towards Philemon's cut line from where it looked like they came from, and just check around towards Treehouse Dam and see if we can kind of find where these guys went. Now, Barbara, which country has the biggest population of wild dogs? So South Africa, I think, has the biggest. South Africa has about 450 to 500 wild dogs at the moment in the whole country. And given that the population estimates for the world is 3,000, it seems fairly feasible that I think South Africa is the biggest population. I must just remember, I will double check, but I think it is South Africa. Botswana and will be quite close behind, and Zambia's got a few wild dogs. Mozambique's now got a few packs into it. Tanzania and Kenya, their dog populations are not huge. Zimbabwe's got a fairly decent amount. I mean, if you go to Mana Pools, there's quite a few dogs there. But I think South Africa has got the biggest all-round population. It's not, I don't think Kruger's got the singular biggest in a park, but in terms of the actual population throughout the country, I think South Africa is the largest. It's unfortunate that there's only that many animals, and if you think about it, to have only 3,000 of a species left is really quite depressive, actually. So it's always nice when you see puppies doing well and packs excelling, and big packs like the Hamilton's pack. It's always nice kind of way of seeing things. But alas, it seems as though we are not winning here at all, because I don't see any dog tracks coming this side. There's the odd hyena track here and there, but Kelina, I'm sure at some point in Juma's rich tapestry of history that the wild dogs might have. I certainly don't know about one, and not in the time that I've been within the Sabi Sands, so not in the last 10 years. But I'm sure at some point they must have. Juma's been going for a long time, and so it wouldn't surprise me at all if dogs at some point had denned on Juma. But I'm hoping at some point we will see it. It's an interesting thing, a dog den. It's amazing because obviously you get to spend so much time with the dogs, and that's very, very special. And little puppies are super cute when they're that small. They kind of run around all over the place and have these big little fat bellies, and they remind me of little Jack Russell puppies when they're very small. And from that point of view are really great. But then comes the sort of aftermath of having a den site, and that is that you pretty much lose a huge chunk of your antelope population. So a lot of things like bushbuck, your duikers, steenbok, nyala, impalas get absolutely hammered when there is a dog den around, and you'll find that your numbers of animals decreases quite a bit. So you'll sometimes go for a drive and you just won't see much at all after dogs have denned in an area. They really do hammer the local kind of population of antelopes. But I suppose it's a price to pay for having cuteness overload and an endangered species actually den in an area. I've been fortunate enough actually to have dog dens 3 times in my life in a place that I've worked, and so always really cool to kind of spend time with these guys around their dens. It's amazing to watch the sort of social interactions between the puppies and the adults and those kind of things. So, Paula, are there any subspecies of wild dogs? Not the wild dog that we see here. There is a doa, which is an Indian wild dog, but is not a subspecies. It's its own separate species altogether, and does not look anything like our wild dogs at all. Oh, hello, waterbuck. You can hear the Egyptian goose are making a lot of kind of noise, but on our right hand side is a waterbuck that is glowing in the afternoon orange, morning light. I don't know why I said afternoon. It's, I suppose, like I say, waking up a little bit, but you'll see shortly he's kind of just grazing along, and we're at Treehouse Dam because I was hoping that we would find something here, maybe the dogs, or tracks for maybe a leopard, but instead there's a beautiful waterbuck bull that is kind of backlit ever so beautifully. And it's nice when it's this time of the day because all of these seeding grasses catch that light, that golden kind of color, and a waterbuck is a really good animal for this because their sort of their coats are so thick and furry that they also catch all kinds of golden light as well, and makes them look extra kind of special with this sort of golden rim. Now, BK, there's a bird that I want to show quickly before it flies away. It's the reason why the Egyptian geese are making so much noise is that sitting up on the top of a tree there is a African harrier hawk, or a gymnogene was its old name. So there it is sitting there, and birds generally go crazy when these guys fly because they are hunters of birds. In particular, kind of nesting birds is what they will go after, and so when they kind of pass over, everybody gets a little bit sort of irritated and a little bit nervous of what's going on, and that's why the Egyptian geese are making quite a bit of noise. Now, these birds are often very cool birds to follow around. So when they fly, they'll fly from tree to tree, and they have these long legs that you can see have no feathers on them. And so those long legs are utilized to be able to actually pull out all kinds of different sort of prey animals, from baby squirrels to birds and various other things. And so they'll use those regularly to do that, and it's quite interesting watching them go around and actually hunting. I've even seen them taking out scorpions, which is pretty amazing. Right, onwards we go. Unfortunately for us, Treehouse Dam is not a successful plan, and so I think maybe let's head off towards Twin Dams and scratch around there for a little bit and see if we get any sign of where these doggies might have gone on that side. Hang on a second. Before we go any further, just trying to see. It looks like there's a drag mark here. I'm just... So Michael, you say 1997 to 2002 there has been a wild dog den. on Juma. That's quite interesting. I didn't know that actually, so it's very, very interesting to kind of see. Now, it's going to be a bit tricky, but essentially you might see it just kind of there and then to my right here. So if I move, you see there's a little marking on the road, and it looks almost drag markish, a bit tricky because the car's a bit in the way and I don't have space to move on the damn wall, otherwise I'm going to drive off the edge here and probably in all likelihood kill myself. So we're going to try and just want to see the tracks itself. It could be from an Ellie's trunk, but I just don't see the Ellie tracks, and it looks like there could be another track here. So I just want to try maybe a little further forward. I wonder if maybe hyenas didn't steal something from one of... The reason why I'm thinking Ellie though is because we had Ellies here last night. Ah, that's what it is. Okay. Interesting. Looks like 2 giraffe males have been potentially fighting with one another, and one of them is just scraping its kind of back leg. So if you have a look on the ground here, you'll find that there's tracks for giraffes all over down at the bottom. So yeah, there we go. You can see there's kind of movements there. And so what it must have happened is the giraffes must have been trying to neck with one another, and one just scraped its leg a lot further than it first looked. That's what it looks like. It's their tracks that are all over the place here. So there's no sign of any leopard or hyena track that would indicate that it was one of them that was kind of dragging anything. And also it's quite a broad drag rather than getting sort of mark and then the legs kind of carrying on through. So often when you get drag marks, you'll get an initial kind of drag, and then where the leg or hoof drags, you get like a little line that runs through it. So it's not a drag mark, but it looks as though giraffes were having a little tussle, which does happen from time to time as well. All right, still interesting to have a little look though. Few Ellie tracks from last night. These would be the same Ellies that we saw yesterday evening. So giraffe girl, the bite force of a wild dog? No idea, to be honest with you. Yes, I don't know. I'll have to look it up for you. But I would imagine not that high, and I'll tell you why. So something like a hyena has got, one is a bigger animal by a long shot, much heavier, bulkier animal, has a very different shaped skull, which would probably be the best way to show you would be in the tent, because there is a wild dog skull there, and you can show the difference between hyenas and wild dogs. But essentially hyenas have much heavier set muscle structure that attaches to their heads. And so they would have obviously a very, very large bite force. The cats themselves are also bigger animals than the dogs, and so their bite force would be a lot larger as well. So I would say that the dogs probably come in maybe similar to what a cheetah's bite force would be, I would imagine. So yeah, I mean, I actually don't know what the figure is at all, to be honest with you. So I've never really kind of looked at the bite force of a wild dog, but I can promise you it's not that impressive. They're not relying on bite force to kill and maim. They're relying on pack numbers to be able to grab, and as long as they can hold on, they can then be able to basically pull that animal and subdue it, and then everyone just starts to feed. So it's not really about being able to have hugely powerful jaws to clamp down and to be able to break things or to eat bone and those kind of certain approach to feeding, where they're going to sort of take pieces of meat off the carcass and leave the bone structure pretty much to itself. I don't know where these dogs are all over quarantine and around there, but no sign of them. There's too many other animals around for it to kind of be, or for them to still be in the area. They must have, maybe they went north and I just missed their track completely and they bypassed the... so there we go, Sandy. So Sandy's saying 235 or 245, one of the two. I didn't catch the middle number, but PSI, which is not very high at all. It's quite low down, actually. So not a huge bite force in comparison to many of the other predators. Those are old female leopard tracks. Those are not the ones we are looking for. We saw those 2 mornings ago. It's the problem with kind of when you haven't had a bit of rain in a while, is that there's lots and lots of tracks that are on the roads and they don't really disappear, and so you've got to kind of be a bit careful about which ones you actually follow. The dog tracks though that we saw were very fresh. They were from during the course of last night. There obviously is a lot of wind that's blowing at the moment, as I'm sure you can hear as I'm driving, and that means that the tracks do get a bit of kind of this dusting on them, and so if they don't have that, then they generally are very fresh. And those ones looked good. I mean, I didn't stop too long to look at them, but they looked fairly decent and as though they were quite crisp from early this morning. We have a roadblock, everybody. Who was being naughty here? Elephants were being naughty. They were the ones that were messing around with that particular branch and have blocked the road. I suppose we should take it off the road, but we'll do it later. We'll come back just now and take it off, I think. I wonder where these elephants have gone. I wonder if they've maybe... It looks like they've gone that way. The problem with wind and cold like this is that it generally is very poor for game viewing, and often when you get these kind of conditions you don't see much at all, and it's certainly been evident this morning. I mean, we've driven around and yes, we've seen a waterbuck and a few impalas, but other than that it's felt desolate, and you can't hear anything either because the wind is howling so much. It's very difficult to even hear anything like birds or any sort of sounds that you could potentially utilize to find something of interest. Right, now we're going to move towards Twin Dams, see if there's any sign there. Sounds like Steve is finally back up and running, and so let's go across to him.
Welcome back. We're terribly sorry about our technical issues, folks. We've been trying to troubleshoot what's going on with our aerial. It seems like Conrad, our technician, has managed to sort it out, and there is a violet-backed starling, beautiful in the light, but there's a whole lot of other starlings on the ground here. I'm going to assume that there's possibly a snake because the birds are all going crazy. You can hear a squirrel as well. Often you'll find birds coming together making this loud sort of alarm call sound as they rally. There's a Birchill starling as they rally as a group to try and oust or attack whatever predator it might be. You often find this with owls, snakes and mongooses. Slender mongoose, for example. They seem to have relaxed again, so I think whatever it was might have slunk away and is now out of sight. Very nice to see. The iridescent blue birds look very dark when the light is in the wrong direction. They look very, very dark. They often, if you get them in the right light, can be a beautiful blue color. Go a little bit of singing. Yeah, Franklin alarm calling as well. Just going to pull back a little bit there, Darby, see if we can see anything hiding. Well, it seems as if our signal issues have been sorted out. Do you see anything there, Darby? I ain't got them calling. Nice bird party. They're also doing a bit of grooming in the morning, a bit of preening, cleaning their flight feathers. There's a great blue-eared starling there. You can see how the coloration has changed now that the light is from a different angle. Beautiful iridescence. Lots of birds calling. Got a white-browed scrub robin calling. Another starlings. There's another starling on top there. There's a Birchill starling once again with a long tail. Off he goes. Okay, well, we're going to continue on our route. We initially went and checked around Gallagher to see if there were any tracks of those wild dogs, but nothing came out by Voyatella Dam or Gallagher Pan. So we're going to keep going on our original route from this morning, down Zoe's Road towards the sort of southwestern side of Djuma, and see if there's any activity. Tristan is still assisting Aubrey with some tracks of what is most likely from the Duke of Djuma from last night. Maybe they'll find him on a carcass of some sort. He was hunting in Parla we heard last night, so maybe he's been lucky. I can't believe how fresh it is. The middle of January, the temperature was 17 degrees this morning when we started. Very, very cool. What's that, 64 degrees Fahrenheit. It's like the Masai Mara when I was there. Very, very standard Masai Mara morning temperatures. And we normally been starting game drive here at 30s, up into the 90s Fahrenheit at the start of drive. While we were getting our signal issues sorted, I managed to put on another jacket. So I'm feeling a little bit better. 2 jackets in January, it's unheard of. Hey, Davy? Unheard of. Okay, let's continue on along here. Zoe's Road. This is a very popular route for many of our characters. It's kind of a route that goes towards the western side but cuts through the heart of Djuma. There's a big loop all the way around, and it's a very common road for the Nkuhumas to pop in on. It's an area where we've often had Hukumuri as well coming through. And, well, whenever Shadulu has been around, she's generally utilized this road to access. And we're very excited to, hopefully one of these days, have Shadulu moving onto the property with her 2 little bundles of joy. How cool would that be, Davy? I don't know if you've seen pictures, but there's pictures of Shadulu's cubs. Oh, they are just the cutest. They are the cutest. And James Hendry last night was enjoying the brand new Sausage Tree Pride cubs. I caught up on a lot of screenshots of that. Precious. Too precious. So don't forget, folks, we are live and interactive. We'd love to hear from you on #SafariLive, or just drop your questions in on the YouTube chat stream or your comments. Let us know what you'd like. See if we can facilitate whatever it is that comes up from a discussion point of view. As we're going, just checking the road. See if there's any tracks worth following up on. There's some fresh elephant tracks back there heading in this direction, so you never know, we might bump into a couple ellies. I drove this entire property upside down yesterday, finding those wild dog, and then afterwards we couldn't find anything. Very quiet, but it was windy, and when it's windy, it is also a bit windy now. A lot of the animals are kind of hiding away. Here we go. Hello, Dory. I think Tingana and Tandi had a little one-night stand relationship. Oh, hang on. There's a kudu here. It's going to materialize. I know Lauren found him with her in the morning, a couple days back, and then he was found on his own yesterday. So I think it's done. I don't know. Oh, here we go. Right in front of us, Darby. I think it's done. Normally, leopards will mate for 3 to 4 days. I don't know what happened and how they came to be, just to have one small little mating session. But seemingly, they are not together again at the moment. But I'm not sure. I don't know where Tundi is. I honestly did search this entire property yesterday, and we couldn't find any fresh female tracks. But here we've found some lovely kudu. Beautiful female. Almost looks like she's grazing, but her head is low down on the ground and feeding on some forbs. Wildflowers. I'm trying to identify what that was. She just ate the last flower. So they're hard to tell, but it looks like a little bit of a creeper. Hello. The wind seems to have slowed down a bit. It was quite windy a little while ago. The kudu are definitely getting back some condition after a very long dry season. So much greenery around. Dave was just commenting he's back from leave now after a week or so, and also he says I can't believe how green everything is, how the bush has recovered from its previous very derelict state. It marvels the mind to see how well and how resilient this environment is to bounce back. Look at how she walks, folks. A very good way to identify kudu tracks. You can see how when she stepped there, she stepped her back foot directly in the same spot as her front foot. That is the direct registering, common to the Tragelaphus or spiraled horn family. Hello, Nancy. You want to know how we tell? It's very bright where I'm positioned. I'm going to move forward. Here comes the male here. But you want to know how we tell the difference between a kudu or female kudu and a nyala? Okay, well, first of all, this is a male. And the females and male kudu look almost identical, apart from the fact that there's horns. But you can see the coloration is a grayish color. There are white stripes on the body. The nyala have got white stripes as well, but they are orange. They are almost the same color as an impala, except the whole body is the same orange color with those stripes. And well, the nyala, big male nyala, he's a chocolate brown color with a lot of shaggy fur on the back of the neck. And then he's got orange socks. And you can see the kudu even down on the legs. The legs are pale grayish color. Nyalas are very, very orange in color. That is the easiest way. And they are obviously also a lot smaller. And just like that, vanishing into the thickets. Very, very good. We have got some kudu. Nice to see. Two young boys there, hanging out with, possibly with mum or with some female. There we go. Nice light there, Darby. You can see the coloration. It's very easy to see how grey they are. There's a slight brownish tinge to it in the light, but they are grey. Whereas the nyala are very, very orange. And they don't get as big either as the kudu. But in many, many respects, very, very similar animals from the same family. Kudu are bigger. Kudu are exclusively browsers. The nyala is capable of mixed feeding, so feeding on grasses when the time suits it. Moving around in small family units as well. Both have got a very loud bark, kudu being the loudest antelope. You can see the wind has picked up once again. As we've discussed many times over the last few days, when it's windy like this, it makes it quite tricky for the animals, and they get a little bit skittish. And so they're moving off into the thickets, trying to just get away from the wind, but slowly moving into the wind is how animals normally move, and then they can smell any danger approaching from the front. Well, we're going to continue on, see what else we can find along this road. Tristan and Aubrey are still in the sort of eastern sides of Djuma, following up on the Duke. Okay, so while we continue on, let's see what we can find. Let's go back over to Tristan for an update.
Well, nice to have Steve out and about again. As you can see, we've covered some ground since you last saw us. We're now down towards Chitwa Dam, and we're going to try and see if we can find anything this side. Hopefully we will be lucky and something will be down towards the dam. It's so windy though that I just don't know if things are going to be out in the open. They would be in all likelihood be lying up in the thickets and far away from any sort of wind. I hate wind. It's why I want to live in Cape, because the wind would just be far too to even handle. So, you know, we'll just try and kind of deal with it for this morning, but it must go away. Salmon. really good today. Well, it's a fan, actually.
Mornings. Yeah. Well, folks, we do apologize. Have no idea what is happening this morning. Monday morning, and the gremlins are in full force. So whatever's going on with Tristan's signal was probably what was going on with ours, and now we're getting the lion's share of the signal. I don't know. We do apologize about that, though. I'm sure our technicians are working tirelessly on it at the moment. What is that? Okay, so we've got tracks of a male leopard along the road here. This could be the little chief, Hosana. I'm only saying that because Tingana's tracks are on that side. Oh no, okay, they've just cut back left here. This is a very popular route. Probably from here down onto the next road. Rebecca's takes us back down onto that very nice prominent drainage area that he loves so much. Okay, oh, those are fresh. Those are from sometime in the morning, in the night. Let's see if we can follow them up. He's walking in the road at the moment, which is what makes it so lovely with these leopards. They like to follow our roads, which makes it easier to track them. But when they go off-road, it becomes a bit trickier. I'm going to see if I can show you those tracks at Derby. You can just see them over my shoulder. Oopsie. Let me turn the car a little bit more. Just over my shoulder there. And be able to see something just to the right of that elephant dung. There we go. Can you see the tracks? Oopsie. There it is. Male leopard. By the size, direction is heading, we would say, southeast at the moment. That direction. Okay, well, good news. It sounds like Tristan not only has sorted out his technical issues, but he has found for you some wild dogs.
Right, now, we just found a wild dog, but I've lost it already. I don't know where it's gone. It was right next to us, and now I've lost where it's gone completely, which is how wild dogs are. So let's just go around onto the cut line. It was running kind of up Chitwa old driveway from the dam itself, from the dam wall. And I wonder if the rest of the pack isn't this side somewhere. So we just need to look for them. They will be around. That's why the vultures are obviously here, is that the dogs are around. Maybe they made a kill, and that's why they've kind of been sitting here sort of having a look. But just need to check very carefully. VK on our left as well. Maybe we'll spot this doggy somewhere here. It was just one wild dog that I saw running past us. You know, with these guys, they can move quite fast. Where did you go? I don't know where it's gone. It's ridiculous. How is that even possible that we've lost a wild dog in 2 seconds? Oh, there it is. There we go. Now they're crossing. Look, there's an impala. It's chasing an impala. Look. They're going after impalas, so they're on the hunt. This is just one wild dog that we can see at the moment. It's chasing impalas around. Unfortunately, that's into Little Gowrie, and so we can't follow, but they look like they might be coming around. I'm just going to turn around quickly. So pandemonium, as is normal with wild dogs, is that they are going to start chasing everything. So we'll try and kind of keep up and try and see if we can actually follow where they go. It's going to be difficult because of the fact that it's kind of on the cut line. So they're in Little Gowrie and on our side. Oof, where's he gone now? Just saw it bolt after an impala. I'm sure there's more than one wild dog here though. I doubt there's an impala looking this way. So where did the dog go though? It was a brief glimpse of a wild dog at least. I hate when we have wild dogs on cut lines. It's the worst thing because you end up just doing up and down, trying to kind of follow them, and they go over and back, and it's... Oof. I don't know if we're going to see. Let's just see where this dog is. I don't see it anymore. It must have run deeper into Little Gowrie at this stage. Let's just go back. There must be more than just this one that is around here. There's tracks. The tracks look like there's a lot more. So I wonder if it's not the Hamilton's pack that is here at the moment, and they're all just split up and hunting in various places. But the last time I saw it was running this way towards some impalas that were in this area, chasing them down. But I don't see where the dog is now. The last impala is all kind of scattered our way, which I suppose is a good thing. The problem is if it grabs an impala, then it's going to, you know, not come this side at all. Where are you, dogs? Okay, well, let's just keep checking. Maybe, just maybe, we will get lucky here somewhere and we'll get another view of these dogs. Wild dogs on the hunt. Like I say, on a cut line is the worst place to be able to find them. Why they couldn't have run towards Chitwa, I have no idea. But apparently, you know, one must run the opposite way. It's our luck this morning that we're having these kind of sightings where they kind of move off onto a different place. But let's just check further down, because here's some impalas here. There's a lamb here and another female, so they're looking more into Little Gowrie than anything else. Let's just double check. I'm just trying to see if I can find tracks for the rest of them, because it's only that one dog that we saw. It's the same one that came past us at Chitwa Dam, so I think the rest of them must have moved, and there must be the whole group around, and they've just, like I say, all spread when hunting. There's some tracks here for dogs. Doesn't look like many, but there's one or two there. Just trying to see where they've all gone. Doesn't look like anything's crossed this cut line besides that one. Indeed, they can. So, Lauren, one wild dog will certainly be able to take an impala down by itself, and they do quite regularly. So it's not something that they can't do. They most certainly can take them down by themselves, and I've seen it happen quite often, particularly if they get hold of young impalas, you know, little baby impalas. They often will get caught by a single wild dog, and even the adults, when they're exhausted and they can't run anymore and the dogs have chased them so much, then one grabs them, and then the calling starts, and then they all kind of come in and start to feed. Sure. I'm not sure where these dogs have gone, because the tracks for this dog goes in this way and then turns back towards the cut line. Oof. I don't know if we're going to get another view of this. Unfortunately, they went the wrong way, or chasing those impalas. They needed to come from my left to right, and they went from my right to left. Now somebody's calling me on the radio, which is fine. Yeah, we lost visual of that dog chasing impalas into Little Gowrie. Right, so we're going to keep looking, we're going to keep trying. Hopefully we'll find more than just the one and the rest of the pack. In the meantime, though, let's send you back across to Jamie.
Do you want me to frame them or not?
Yeah. Okie dokie, off Tristan goes, racing around. My sincerest apologies for our prolonged absence. We were battling off gremlins in the tent. So it's just one of those mornings where things happen and it's exciting, but also things go wrong as well. So we do apologize. We're back up and running again. The tick made several escape attempts, but I've managed to corral it under the microscope. We'll get to that a little bit later. But for now, we're talking about the different hunting styles of big cats versus something like a wild dog or a hyena. And just look at the difference in length. And I mean, I'm working with what I've got here. Look at the difference in length between a cat skull and a dog skull or a hyena skull. Now, in both of those cases, you can really see the difference in the length of the mandibles and the extension of the top of the jaw. Now that immediately tells you something about the way in which an animal hunts, whether you're talking about a hyena or you are, well, to an extent, a hyena, or if you are talking about a big cat. The way that big cat skulls have evolved with their lengthy canines, of course, as well, is for a precision killing bite, essentially. So although they've got a fearsome armory of, in the case of lions, muscles and claws, and with leopards also muscles and claws, what it really comes down to is, as you can imagine, just by pure physics, the shorter something is, the more powerful the downward pressure can be, the sort of the muscles around the face, and it's all focused around the front part of the jaw so that it can actually grab something and go into that chokehold or the suffocation bite around the neck of its prey, or when lions are killing buffalo, it's around the nose as well if they cannot get a good grip around the neck. Where dog jaws are very different in their design. They are designed to run and grab their prey, but it's quite a, everybody always says it's a very cruel death. It is a much more, to our eyes, violent death, because the dogs are not grabbing their prey and suffocating it. They sort of tear it apart, and that's very unpleasant as a human being to witness, because we see it as something that we don't really want to see. But in fact, it's probably around about the same size. I didn't quite get your name fully there. You want to know which skull is the heaviest? At this point, this is the skull that is the heaviest, just because it is larger. This is our slightly split leopard skull. It is much, much heavier. If you really want to know what the heaviest skull is, well, I've got a surprise for you, because the heaviest skull is currently sitting outside the tent. It is the elephant skull, and we're going to go, during the course of this drive, we're going to go out there to go and have a look at it, because something very interesting has happened. That skull is incredibly heavy, and yet, from where I left it, it has migrated slightly. It's migrated about 2 feet across down towards the tent. It has also suddenly become separated from the lower mandible, and I have strong suspicions as to why that might be, but we'll finish off with our discussion around these skulls first, and then we can go and have a look, because I think that at some point the tent had a visitor, and I think I've solved the mystery of why there are cracks on that elephant skull. I think I understand now. I think I know. We might as well. We're here now. So we'll leave these guys. You can ponder over your questions related to the structure of a carnivore's jaws and skull, because there is a very big difference between the way in which they are structured. The hyena, of course, has also got that massively developed crest on the top of its skull for muscle attachment. So that's the crest over here. And you'll find it a little bit in the dog family as well. This is where the muscles and the tendons attach to create jaw strength. Something that the cat skull, if I show you now, almost completely lacks. That ridge over there. That crest is completely absent. Not completely, it's there, but it is not nearly as well developed as it is in something like a hyena, and that's for muscle attachment to be able to crush those jaws. And that has a knock-on effect in terms of anatomy, because as the jaw is bigger, the shoulders are also more powerfully developed to create almost something of a fulcrum, so that the hyena can pull backwards, and also all of those muscles contribute. Anatomy is all connected, so all those muscles contribute to the ability to crush bone. Now even I'm going to blow away. Now even the hyena's jaw strength would not be able to cope with the ability to crush an elephant skull. So we're going to go outside, and it's going to be a bit messy because everything changes from A to B, but there we go. We're going to go outside and have a look at what's happened here. Are you okay there, Seb? You got enough cable? You good?
Fine, yeah.
You're good. Okay, cool. All right, I was taken Seb by surprise slightly there. When I was in the tent, when was I in the tent? There you go. Okay, a lot of people are already onto the mystery that I was about to raise, but okay, lots of you saying Daryl was sniffing the skull. Daryl not only sniffed the skull was sitting here. We've walked all over the elephant tracks, so you actually can't see them. There are places where he scuffed. Now, Daryl's actually shifted this entire skull all the way over here. He's knocked it onto its back, and he's separated it, and he's obviously at some point picked up the lower mandible. So he separated it from the bottom jaw, and he's actually he's picked up the bottom jaw and moved it across here. And I think that that's why the skull is cracked. Obviously it wasn't Daryl now, because those cracks have been there for a while. But if you watch elephants investigate something, they use their trunks and they use their feet and they kick. And I think an elephant did this. I think an elephant put its foot on the skull, and I think they pushed down. And I think that's why we've got those cracks in the top of the skull. That would just be my theory. Now, why? Why this bone? Why an elephant bone? There's lots of bones around here. This place looks like a veritable graveyard. There's a waterbuck. Okay, that's also elephant over there. That's a massive femur. There's our giraffe. Oh, he's kicked our giraffe, not the bees. Oh, no. Are you okay? You still there? They're broken. That's devastating. Daryl, what did you do? I forgive you the fence and everything like that, but not the bees. Seb, their tunnel's broken completely. I don't think I've ever been. It was there.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been this heartbroken. Right, that's it, Daryl. That's it. You are banned from the tent. No. I'm heartbroken. James is going to cry. This is really very sad.
You don't think there's anyone left in there?
I don't know. I'm going to put it under the microscope later and have a look. That's, of course, if our tick hasn't made a break for it, which is quite possible. It's quite the escape artist. Every time I put it on its back, it flips over and wanders off. We'll find it again. It's quite hard to miss. I was talking about Daryl and why he went for the elephant skull, although, of course, now he's kicked over the giraffe skull. So completely, not only did he destroy the bees, but he completely ruined the point I was trying to make by doing something that I wasn't talking about. So, you know, whatever. It's fine, Daryl. I won't take it personally. What we know about elephants is that they often investigate carcasses. And it's not just elephant carcasses. I've seen them play with dead buffalo. I've seen them fiddle with dead impala. But they do definitely show a fascination when it comes to the carcasses or the bones and remains of their own kind. And it's really up to us to figure out what our stance is and what we think they're thinking about this whole thing. So while we ponder that and while I transfer the giraffe skull to the microscope, bounce back to Steve to find out how his leopard tracking is going.
Thanks, Jamie. Good luck in the tent, and how interesting that Daryl or someone has come to visit that elephant skull. Something I was remarking the other day when we were with Hosanna just at Twin Dams is you saw a number of young elephant bulls come in and go towards that elephant carcass and then move off again. Obviously, we were with the little chief the whole time, so I didn't see exactly. There we go, cut them. Okay, so the leopard tracks are coming down Zoe's Road over there, and I've just cut them again now as they've come directly past here, and they're heading sort of towards Treehouse Dam. So that's kind of the mindset I was thinking. So fresh leopard tracks, they really seem to be quite as we call steaming fresh. So it's just gone through there. I'm going to come around onto the Shabama Road and see if indeed he's cut through. I've got a very strong feeling it's most likely Hosanna, but then I don't want to say that until I find the animal, because quite often you find it's a different leopard altogether. It's definitely a male leopard. Definitely a male leopard. But maybe we're even a little bit too far. Oh, I want to check that. There's a really big termite mound at the back there. I want to have a look. We know that we know our leopards love to go onto termite mounds, and that track was heading straight towards a very big termite mound that I just spotted. And it's always worth having a little look around. You never know, you might just find them lazing on the mound, waiting for us to take beautiful photographs of them. There's one of the bigger of the termite mounds that we find in the area. Very windy. We can probably see how the branches are moving. And in my opinion, leopards will often move using the wind. Controversial issue between myself and some of the viewers and also some of the guides. Some people believe they do use wind and some do not. Just have a little listen. No alarm calls. It's very quiet. Red-crested Korhan calling there. Okay, well, I don't spot anything, so we're going to keep going around onto Treehouse Dam area and see if there's any tracks heading in that direction. There's a favourite route for Hosanna. It's a very nice route for Hosanna, but the tracks are in a route that Hukumuri likes to take as well, so I really can't tell you, folks. The only thing I'm probably certain about is that they're not Tingana's tracks. That's the only thing I can say with almost certainty. But he was walking very slowly, so you can tell the speed of a leopard by the fact that the back foot is sitting on top of where the front foot is. Goes to show that he was probably stalking the entire time, walking quietly, walking with lots of purpose, just to sort of sneak up on animals. Walk and stop and listen, walk, stop and listen. Ideal conditions for predators to be hunting. The wild dogs came up this road yesterday and their tracks are all over the place. Okay, we're going to be turning right in a moment. Go and check the road just towards the Gary Main to the cut line. See if we can catch any of his tracks coming back again. It just feels to me as if those tracks were very fresh and maybe we were right behind him, so he might actually still be moving. I say that because the tracks are so clean, and when it's windy like this, the wind actually blows the edges off the tracks, and they lose that sort of coloration and that sharpness. So while we get around here, see if we can maybe cut the tracks and listen for any alarm calls. Let's go to Tristan, who is still with his wild dogs.
Well, good luck, Steve, in finding your leopard. Hopefully you'll have a bit more luck than I'm having with the dogs. Unfortunately, it just seemed to have run off into Little Gari side and can't really find any sign of the rest of the pack. There literally is wild dog tracks everywhere on Chitwa at the moment. It's because this is, you know, from what I can gather is potentially with the Hamilton's pack. There's tracks, like I say, going in every direction. We know that also the Investec breakaways ran through here 2 days ago, and so it's just literally every road has just got wild dog tracks on it. So it's a bit tricky trying to work out exactly which ones are which at the moment and where they all head. So we're just doing some loops on Chitwa in areas that I know often house a lot of impalas. If dogs are hunting, then sometimes they will make use of these kind of areas, particularly around the airstrip. The dam is a good place. And so we'll try and kind of head back towards the dam and where we last saw that dog. Nothing there, then we're going to go on to Gari Main and just check there that they haven't crossed northwards. It's possible that they could have gone into Juma actually, so we'll just try and kind of work our way back that side. But you can see how mobile that dog is. And that makes them very tricky. That's much why we kind of struggled to try and find them earlier, is that they move so fast that it really is tough to be able to actually pick up where exactly they have gone. So, you know, we're just trying to do loops in, like I say, in areas that we think that these dogs might end up going, but they just, when they hunt, it's kind of a lottery. So, Bill, what would be a healthy population or number of wild dogs? It's difficult to answer that, I suppose. I think it's very much dependent on how healthy your prey species population is, because dogs are going to eat a lot of things like, impalas and duikers and steenboks and bushbuck and all of these other kind of animals that we've discussed. And so that means that if you don't have huge populations of those, then there's not going to really be enough food for dogs. What I do know is that here in South Africa, if they repopulate dogs into a private game reserve, that game reserve needs to be bigger than 10,000 hectares before they'll put dogs onto it. And there needs to be a study of how many animals are actually there. And so, wild dogs require a huge food source and quite a lot of space. And so the populations within the Kruger Park kind of system are probably on the low side, but not far off what is actually sustainable and what is kind of useful for the environment. I don't think that too many more wild dogs would do well. I think you'd find that there'd start to become too much competition, so they would run into all the other predators. Numbers of prey would drop, and therefore, their numbers as well. So what is the optimal number? I don't know. I think it's very dependent on what is available to them, and in how big an area we're talking. Absolutely massive, and so the 240 wild dogs that they have in the Kruger Park could probably increase to 300-400 and be okay. I think 410, I think was 450 was the highest that they had at one point. So I'd probably imagine that it would be able to support that, especially given that vast tracts of the northern sections, which are not bad wild dog habitat. And it's just that they unfortunately have been so badly snared on the borders of South Africa with Zimbabwe and Mozambique that they just, don't really exist up there anymore. Dogs are very, very, very susceptible to being snared and being killed that way. So I suppose, 500 or so would be probably easily kind of sustainable. Here in the sands at the moment, if we take all the packs that we're seeing, we're probably seeing close on 50 wild dogs just in the Sabi Sands area, and the Sabi Sands area is almost 1% of the Kruger Park kind of system, and so 50 dogs of 240, it gives you an idea of how many that are here at the moment. And we're lucky to be able to see dogs as frequently as we do in the Sabi Sands. I think it just depends. It depends on water, it depends on food availability, as to what the carrying capacity of wild dogs actually is. I'll ask Grant. So Grant is the guy that researches the dogs here in the Kruger Park system, and so I'll ask him what they believe to be the carrying capacity of the dogs for this area, and see what he says. Good. Anyway, we're going to carry on. We're going to try to see if we can actually find said wild dogs, and while we do that, we're going to send you across to Jamie, who's still messing around with skulls in the tent.
Okay, so while Tristan solves the puzzle of where the wild dogs have gone, and if anyone can solve it, Tristan can, we are looking at our beloved Mopani bees, or the home of them. Now, James says, and apparently he's tweeted, so he's obviously watching, James says that it's been destroyed many times before, and that they will return once again. I hope so. Hello? You there? Anybody there? Apparently, I've never tried it, but apparently the honey of the Mopani bee is one of the most delicious types of honey that you could ever eat. Obviously not quite produced in the same quantities as something like the honey bees, the ones that we think of as the sort of the standard honey producing bees. I'm going to have a look through the microscope. I'm assuming, oh goodness, let me not make things worse. I'm assuming that FC's got it up and running. Let me move my hand there away from the light. The tunnel is looking very sad indeed. It does not look happy at all. It's very pretty in its own way. A marvel of construction. But, oh, is that movement? No, I think that's just the reflection of the tent glowing in my screen. Never mind. I thought I saw a movement. I got very excited. Come on. What were their names again? Didn't they have names? Or were they just randomly named on an ad hoc basis? I don't quite know. A funny colour around the one side. It almost looks as though it's rotted away. It should be that golden colour that you can see on the left of your screens, not that blackish colour there on the right. I'm glad James has hope. I've got a horrible feeling. Let me see if I can... Oh, my hand's playing havoc with the light. Let me see if I can focus further down in the tunnel. No, whoops, we're going the wrong way. Wrong way. No, there's nobody coming out. Oh dear, oh dear. Okay, well, we can only hope. Don't you think the texture of that giraffe skull looks very much like... Looks very much like a bone. I mean... Oh, idiot. Looks very much like a tree, like wood. That's what I was trying to say. Look, the bone looks very much like a bone. Profound. That's why they... Okay, I'm going to take the microscope away now. Goodness gracious. Aren't you glad that... Aren't you glad that I'm talking to you about things in the tent? I've clearly got my brain together quite spectacularly. Oh man, I really hope they're okay. What I'm going to do is, after we're finished here, I'm going to take this back outside so that they can come back. Lindsay wants to know if they dig their own holes in the bones. As far as I know, they look for a little natural opening and they might be able to excavate a little bit out of it, but mostly they need some sort of an in. So in this case, this was the perfect hollow for them, this little hole that they went in through there. There are other patches where there are holes within the skull that I've got a funny feeling we saw them. I think they were using another exit as well, or something. I can't remember. Let me just flip the skull quickly. I thought once before I saw you could see in. Oh, that's disgusting. Maybe it was down here somewhere. No, it's just all sinus. Maybe it was another... Maybe I'm getting confused with another time and another place. Oh, the skull's dropping a whole load of stuff onto me. Okay, well, I'm gonna put him outside and we'll do a test and see. I've got a horrible feeling this might be it for the Mopani bees, but I hope that's not the case. Perhaps it was just one too many times and they've decided that this neighborhood is not a good one and that it is time for them to move off. They make these beautiful waxy entrance tunnels. It's such a marvel of construction. Amazing. I'm having fun with a microscope here in the tent, which was the whole point of being here, so I'm going to go look for some little things to show you under the microscope. It's been a while since I've used it properly. Let's go back across to Steve, who I assume is still leopard tracking.
Welcome back, folks. Well, we haven't managed to cut those tracks again. They went into the block there, and we thought we heard some alarm calls. We investigated, but we didn't find anything. Still trying to see if he's come out. We're approaching sort of our southern boundary with the fire break in Gowrie, Main. Kind of the area where I had the wild dogs on the show last night. So, nothing yet. Always nice to to track an animal and to find it. There's something really special about that. Sometimes you're lucky and you just find them in the road. But that's because the animals like to walk in the road. Hello, Dolly. I haven't spent time with leopards and wild dogs at the same time, but last year Tingana interacted with the wild dogs. I wasn't there. Someone, I think it was James. Yes, James was there. He stole a kill that they made. It was two of the Investec. Oopsie. There's the tracks. Okay, so they've come straight out where I thought they would. Unfortunately, these are heading straight for our boundary. So I've got a very strong feeling by these tracks that they are those of Hukumuri. So the boundary, Shabamu and Gowrie Main coming right up. So James had some time with the wild dogs, and I think last year as well, I think it might have been Brent, I'm not sure. One of them had Hosana interacting with the wild dogs. I think he stole a kill from them as well, somewhere down on Chitwa. such a naughty boy. But there's always interaction between the two. They will try to kill each other if they can. Obviously, leopards, if they find wild dog puppies, will definitely try to kill them. If wild dogs find a leopard, they'll definitely tree it, and up the tree it'll go. These predators do not like each other at all. There's huge competition, and obviously leopard and wild dog, they've got the same food resource. They're generally going for the medium-sized prey animals such as impala. Okay, so lots of hyena tracks here. Hyena's also following this leopard. I'm just trying to see if he has indeed come down and crossed out over here. So we had the wild dog just up here yesterday morning. No tracks there. He might have gone along the fire break. Good morning. He might have come straight out here, or we might have gone down the fire break. By the way he was walking, I'm going to assume he's come straight out. Hello, Crescent Moon. You want to know why lions and leopards sleep on termite mounds? Well, I don't often find lions on a termite mound, but leopards, they do it for a vantage point. They do it to try and elevate themselves so that they can see the surroundings, so they can see if there's any food that's coming through. It gives them a nice bit of a vantage point. A cheetah do the same in the Mara and areas where the grass is quite long, to just give them a nice sort of aerial view. And quite often the termite mounds themselves are free of sticks and grass and things, and so it's also probably a little bit more comfortable. Okay, well, those tracks have not come down here. Maybe he turned. We're going to have to scratch around a little bit here and see exactly where this leopard has gone. Maybe he is lying up right here next to this watering hole. Darby, what do you reckon? I didn't see him. But it's not uncommon for leopards to cross straight in and out of Druma. Hosana doesn't do too much crossing out. He spends a lot of time within our boundary. These tracks have come all the way along the west. There we go. There they are. All the way along the west. Here they are. Are you going to turn in? It looks like he did indeed turn in to this pan over here. So I'm going to go down our fire break and see maybe if we can be lucky. The fire break is just over here. Some of you might ask, what am I talking about when I say a fire break? A fire break is essentially a parallel road that runs with a boundary road that can be used as a management tool in the purpose of fire. If fire comes, you can drive that road and you can extinguish it by obviously lighting another fire, fighting fire with fire. Just checking the termite mounds as well, because you know you're asking about why do they like to sleep, and often Hukumuri and Tingana, they're resting on the termite mound because also warthogs go inside the burrows within the termite mounds themselves, and many times we've had them resting on top of a termite mound and not long afterwards actually killing a warthog. Sometimes they wait for a very, very long time with no success, but they seem to move from termite mound to termite mound, giving them a nice vantage point. So I don't think they're necessarily choosing the termite mound as a place to sleep. It just seems to be a nice elevated area that they get to as they're making up their mind for the next step. Very opportunistic animals, so putting themselves in the right position so to be able to spot and to see whatever it is that's going on. And being a cat, once they've decided to sit on top of a termite mound, well, if nothing's going on, they'll have a bit of a nap, constantly resting themselves, keeping up their energy demands. Okay, well, I don't see any tracks here. It's very strange because Aubrey had the tracks of a male leopard crossing on this fire break into Torchwood, but that is on the other side of the property. Oh, I don't have my map today. And I drove this road yesterday. There were no leopard tracks here, and seemingly none again. So maybe he did indeed cross out, or maybe he turned back again towards Treehouse Dam. Bearing in mind, I did say his tracks suggested to me that he's on the hunt. It's not the territorial movements of a leopard. When a leopard is territorial moving or covering distance, then their tracks are generally like this. But his tracks were like this, which means to me that his gait and speed is one of slow meandering. So maybe we will catch up with him, but in the meantime, let's go back over to Tristan, see if he's had any luck relocating on his wild dogs.
Well, Steve, I think you and I are having a very similar morning in that neither of us are having much luck at this stage. It's not really gone according to plan with these doggies just disappearing on us. We've done loop after loop after loop just to try and hope that that dog came back and joined with the rest of the pack, and we'd kind of get the whole pack together again. Like I said, I'm not sure which pack it is, and no one's found that dog that we saw in Little Gowrie. They're looking for it, but they can't find it yet. It's not to say that they won't, and they won't find the rest of the pack, but I'm intrigued to know exactly which pack it is, whether it's the breakaway Investex, I think it's a warthog. Sometimes dogs will chase warthogs. Come on, doggies. Where are you? No, dogs don't seem to be on the tail of that warthog, that's for sure. Okay, well, we're going to just keep scratching. I mean, the thing is I can't find tracks for an entire pack crossing out of Chitwa. So, who knows? Maybe we'll get lucky and we'll find them here somewhere. It's always very possible. You have to just keep kind of trying. So, Caroline, no, wild dogs don't bark while they hunt. In fact, wild dogs very seldom will actually let out any sort of barking sound. The only time they really let out a bark, which I don't know if I would even call it a bark, I suppose it is a bark, is when there's an alarm call. So it's when they've spotted lions or they've spotted people on foot, then they'll let out this bark sound, and that basically tells everybody, whoa, there's something here, be very careful, try to get out of here as quick as possible. So that's generally when you'll hear that bark sound. When they're hunting, though, they're quiet. They don't make any noise because like any predator, making noise when you're hunting is not really going to lead to too much success. In fact, you're going to have a bit of a tough time of it. If you are barking while hunting, you're going to really kind of ruin your chances of sneaking up on anything. And even though wild dogs are going to kind of try and chase things, and it's going to be pandemonium and chaos, and they normally don't really actively camouflage themselves when they stalk, they still need to get close enough to be able to have a bit of a surprise element when coming in. So they're not going to really want to bark or anything like that, and I'm pretty sure if they did bark and make a lot of noise, all the things like the impalas would be flabbergasted at the fact that they were seeing the predator coming and being able to figure out what was going on before they actually kind of got caught. So, you know, you would find that it wouldn't really work very well if they were to bark while hunting. Wild dogs make a very odd array of sounds. Many of you will know the who call that they have, which is a ghostly-like call, and then they've got their sort of squittering, chattering call that they've got. And then they've got that little bark that they use sometimes as well. So lots of different calls that wild dogs actually make. Ooh, but I don't see them anywhere. Impalas here look all as though they are super chilled, as though nothing's really going on apart from a windy morning. They're always a little bit more on edge in the wind, but they certainly don't look very kind of worried. Okay, well, I think we're going to go to Chitwa Dam, just sit at the dam, and maybe we'll get lucky and they'll come to the dam. If not, then we're going to turn back and we'll go and check Gowrie Main once more. I did check a little bit, but we'll go and check all the way towards sort of Twin Dams area. In the meantime, though, Jamie is still being infatuated with ticks and is still looking under them, well, looking at them under the microscope.
This tick is absolutely fascinating. Once you get over the grossness of it, I've put it on its back because otherwise if I put it on its belly then it does a little escape act, and I've had to pull it off the desk a few times and put it back where it was. But it also gives me an opportunity to look at it under the microscope, and it's surprisingly pretty if you don't know what it is. It's got a mother of pearl sheen to the skin. Now, I don't exactly know which species that it is. Now, I don't know if we're on the microscope or not, or if we are seeing it. There we go. Perfect. Thank you. Cool. So there we go. Now, I'm trying to work out, I've been doing some quick Googling on tick anatomy. I'm trying to work out what that is over there at the top of your... No, stay where you were. The top of your screen, sorry. There, I've got a very uncooperative tick here. There. Is that the tick's anus? Or, sorry, Seb, I just headbutted the camera. Or is that its genital opening? Or is it both? I really don't know. But how cool is this? You'd actually sort of, especially because it's moving, I'm struggling to keep it in focus because it keeps shifting around. But it really does have this sort of, it looks like it's moving in waves as it contracts its muscles to try and keep itself or get itself back on its legs. Now, if I show you something else, I'm going to slowly move it down, and then I'm going to refocus it so you can see the head, although it does it itself. There's its head over there, its biting jaws, and the segmented legs. Just bear with the focus. Look at the bits that are in focus, because this thing doesn't stay still, and I'm not going to hold it down in case it pops on me. You can see its legs waving about frantically. This is really fascinating. There you go. There's that huge muscular movement as it tries to shift itself around. And it's got these legs waving about in the air. There, those jaws. That head, of course, becomes embedded in the skin. And it's only when the female ticks are thoroughly engorged with blood. And I would say that this is a female tick, a soft-bodied tick, but I don't know which one it is. Look at it go. Child of the Universe has asked a question that I try and remind myself of at all times, because I really treat ticks in a way that most people do, which is I find them thoroughly unpleasant. But Child of the Universe wants to know, what is the ecological importance of ticks? Now, if you read the books and the essays, they'll tell you that if there is an animal that is injured or weak, it helps to hasten the process. Excuse me, where are you going? You can just go back in there. It helps to hasten the process of that animal's death, because an ill animal has a massively increased tick load. But sometimes I think that we look for reasons for something to exist, and we assume that it has to have a place, that it has to be there so that it does some good. Certainly there is a balance in nature, definitely, but sometimes things exist, I guess, because they haven't died out. They've managed to survive, they're successful, and they're parasitic in a way that doesn't actually mean that they completely destroy their hosts, so there's still available food. You know, the most important reason, I guess, would be as food for oxpeckers and various other creatures that do eat ticks. So that would be your most, they serve a part of the food chain. Essentially, that would be your most important ecological reason for ticks. They are a food source for other creatures. So something like an oxpecker, I imagine this would be like what would you call it? A 5-course meal for an oxpecker. This is really cool looking at it under the microscope. It's absolutely fascinating. I don't even have to do any movement. It does it for me. Isn't it fantastic that those legs are able to grip onto the skin of its host and lead it to where it needs to be? It looks like a fingerprint. It looks like a mother-of-pearl fingerprint, its skin. And other than that, I know absolutely nothing really about the way in which it reproduces in terms of where its genitals are. It's got 2 little marks. Let me move it again for you. It's got 2 little side marks there. Hey, no, stay down, stay still. There. Underneath the leg. There. Those look like openings. I don't know if those are openings for air or gash exchange. Pola or Paula wants to know how long this tick will survive being swollen like this. I would say that this is the end of this tick's life cycle. Most of these larger ticks have a sort of multiple stage. They go through multiple stages where they molt and then they grow into a slightly larger tick. So there's some that only have 2 phases of their life cycle, some that have 3, and this I imagine would have multiple stages because it is a very large tick. Now, I would say that this is the end stage. I would say this is a female, I would guess. And I would guess that it is then going to lay its eggs. It's probably been fertilized and it is then going to die. I don't think it's going to survive for too much longer. Once I'm done with this tick, obviously I'm going to return it to the natural environment. I'm not going to do anything horrible to it. Certainly not going to squish it. The thought is absolutely revolting. The thought of doing that. It is full of blood. I don't know whether it was a rhino or an elephant or something like that. A lot of the books say that elephants don't get ticks. I'm sorry, I've seen ticks on elephants. I have definitely seen ticks on elephants. Look at it move. It's fascinating. It's mesmerizing. And to think that it's basically got an open liquid cavity in there. The fact that its design is able to move it like that is quite amazing. Let me show you how it walks. Hello. We're going to shift it up onto its belly. There we go. There we go. Now we've got a view from the top. And there it goes. And its legs. So that, of course, is one thing that separates it from the insect, the sort of the vast heading of an insect. There it goes. It's off. It's coming for you, Seb. It's on its way towards you. It's charging. That's what separates it from the heading of an insect, because, of course, it has 8 legs. And therefore is considered alongside the spiders and the scorpions and things like that. Bye. It's a walking raisin. A walking raisin that's been left in the sun for 3 weeks. That's what it looks like. I wonder where she wants to drag herself off to. Probably to go have a nice nap with a belly like that. I'm going to learn something. I'm going to learn a lot about ticks, I feel, after this experience, because it's not often that we get one that's large enough for us to actually closely examine. I'm trying to see if you can see the blood under the microscope. This poor thing's been prodded and poked. Oh, not really. No, it doesn't want to be. It's on its back or nothing, because it does not stay still. Sorry. Alright, there you go. Okay, you're back under the microscope. Cool. Well, it's all go here in the tent. I'm going to go search for something else to put under the microscope and do some further research on ticks. Come on, Steve. How's that leopard? Where's it gone?
We had sort of made the decision like a month ago and figured that we had
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Like adults, eh? Welcome back, everybody. We've tried to find those tracks, and they haven't really materialized. We've checked Treehouse Dam, and well, we hoped maybe a leopard would just be lying there in the open, but they have not been. So we're just going to keep going along here, checking the other routes. We checked the road into Treehouse from that side. We're going to check it this way out. There are some fresh elephant tracks that definitely weren't here yesterday, because I did cover this area quite well. We'll go down to Twin Dams and see what's going on that side. Still quite windy, so there's still a good chance that you could have the predators busy moving, as Tristan is seeing with his wild dogs, really making it hard for him to keep up, let alone find them again. That is the way with wild dogs. When they get moving, they really do get moving. Don't forget, folks, we are 100% interactive, and well, we would love to hear from you. Hashtag SafariLive, or drop your comments or questions in on the YouTube chat stream. Such pleasant weather. I can't really explain to all of you back home what it's like when you go from 100-degree Fahrenheit temperatures to 60-degree Fahrenheit temperatures. It's really nice. Means that the middle of the day nap is going to be a nice one. Hey, Darby. Oh yes. Oh yes. I even turned my fan most of the way down last night. It was a bit chilly. Normally you got to have the fan on absolute full bore just to keep yourself relatively cool. And the air movement. Hello, Jenny. You want to know what diseases we are exposed to as a bush guide? Well, number one on the list, probably malaria. That does happen through here, and that is transferred by mosquitoes. And that's anyone who... Tristan is busy calling me. If you just give me 1 second. Standing by. We're coming along from Treehouse Dam towards Twin Dams on Elephant Skull. Confirm around Twin Dams, you reckon? Okay. So Tristan thinks the wild dogs might pop out here somewhere, so we're going to keep having a little look-see around. I'll keep answering your question, Jenny. Copy that, Tristan. We'll let you know if we see any tracks. Nothing so far. So malaria is one of those, but that's not just only subject to a bush guide. Anyone working out here is subject to malaria because of mosquitoes. So we're going to be very careful in the early mornings and the evenings with long sleeves and with spray. Then another one is tick bite fever. It's something that I got a few years ago. We do get covered in ticks when we walk. If you're not walking, well, you're generally okay. You saw Jamie showing you a tick under the microscope. There are lots of ticks around, especially when we have buffalo through the property. So tick bite fever is a bad one. It's not deadly, but you feel like you're going to die. And then one of the very important ones to pay attention to, and a lot of people are inoculated against it, is rabies. If you did happen to come across a rabid dog and you got bitten, rabid dogs go a little crazy in the head. And if you get bitten, there is no cure for a human that I know of. If you haven't been inoculated against rabies, well, you get bitten by a rabid dog, you go mad. You die of insanity, I believe. Something like that. So that's one. It's not that prevalent, but being in these nature reserves that are surrounded by communities, the dogs often aren't inoculated against most of the sort of things that you would inoculate dogs against. So you get lots of working sort of universities and health organizations coming through to national parks and to the surrounding communities for sort of sterilizing dogs and giving them all the inoculations that they need. And they do pose an enormous threat, especially to the wild dog populations that we have because of rabies. Rabies is a saliva transferred disease, and they are, and also canine distemper. We won't ever get canine distemper, but they're very, very common in wild dog. And I know Madikwe last year had an enormous die-off of their wild dogs because of a rabies outbreak. So very, very important that if you have a dog in and around these communities outside the parks, that they are inoculated. Unfortunately, there's not always easily done. That is all I can think of off the top of my head. I'm sure there are others that you can get. Bilharzia is a schistosoma, so basically a plasmodium within your bloodstream that can often be taken in by a wound on the skin, and it affects your liver quite badly in sort of slow moving water. It's transferred by snails. We just try not to swim too much in our little pans here. What else is there? There's probably a couple others that I'm not really thinking about. I try not to worry too much about all the things out here that could potentially kill me, because, well, end of the day, it would just be, you'd just be worrying about something you can't really do anything about, to be honest. Sammy J, I don't know if rabies is transferred to buffalo. I really don't know. I know that we can get it, and I know that it's quite common in dogs. Darby, should we go right here? Straight. Go right. I don't know to a buffalo, to be honest. I really don't know. Imagine a rabid buffalo coming running at you, all salivating with these big horns. I think it would be frightening. Buffalo are frightening enough as it is, let alone if they suddenly got a little bit of rabies. But I seriously doubt that it is something transferable to buffalo. But then I'm not 100% sure. It's definitely not my level of expertise. Diseases. Okay, well, we're just crossing through the Mawati here. Tristan said potentially the wild dogs might have come down this direction. You see, when they start moving, they kind of just... Hello, Tiffany. We don't get Lyme's disease in South Africa. I believe it is a disease that's restricted to North America. It is a tick-borne disease, but there's no Lyme disease in Africa that I am aware of. I know many of my guests back in the past were terrified, most of them American guests, of Lyme's disease because, well, there are ticks here. You can get tick bite fever, but it's very easily treated, a little bit of antibiotics. All you're going to do is get some gland swelling, lymphatic system sort of affects the lymphatic system and affects your glands, your neck or your armpits or your groin. But are very easily treated with antibiotics. It'll just give you a bit of a headache if you do get it. But within a couple of days after antibiotics, you are fine again. No, Lyme's disease is very, very problematic. But no, we don't get it here. Okay, so this is a nice little loop that loops past around the Umawati here and then back up. And I had some tracks just into Torchwood last night of what seemed to be Tundi and Tlalamba. They weren't very fresh, but they're the freshest Tundi and Tlalamba tracks I've seen. So we're going to slowly make our way into that area. Obviously, the entire time we are looking for tracks still. Any movements? Maybe the wild dog have cut back down south of this direction. Maybe they're in the block somewhere up here feeding on an impala. We don't know. Tristan says they don't make a lot of noise when they're hunting. If they do lose each other, they make a very loud whooping sound to try and find the rest of the family. But how lovely is that 3 drives in a row we managed to get wild dogs for you? I think that's very special. Very, very special. Hello Lee, you want to know if I have any natural concoctions to prevent all of these diseases and viruses that we can contract? Well, many of the plants have got elements in them that can be used to treat fevers, can be used to treat headaches, but there's no sort of cure-all, if you would, with regards to all these viruses, diseases. maybe you just have to take a little bit of each. The fever tree, which grows in areas where the yellow fever as well as malaria is quite prevalent in South Africa, the fever tree itself, the bark, can be made into a very nice concoction, which is actually a prophylaxis for malaria, which I find very interesting. They do talk about the fact that normally if you find any sort of disease or ailment in the environment, there is a plant in that environment that will give you the remedy. And I think that's very, very, very helpful. The sigglebush tree is normally quite good for healing all sorts of fevers. And well, the russet bush willow, you can steam the leaves to help with any headaches that you might have. When I had tick bite fever years ago, I actually tested the russet bush willow. I steamed it and I used it to cure my headache. I didn't have any antibiotics because I was in the bush. I didn't happen to get to the doctor, but I managed to get some very nice painkillers which eradicated my headache. And I don't think that the russet bush willow, which is in fact this tree right next to me, I don't think it provided the necessary headache cure that I needed, because, well, I was in a very bad way. And here we go, the beautiful russet bush willow. Very easy to identify. These smallish sort of Mickey Mouse-like ears. If you look and the leaves are opposite. They grow in an opposite arrangement on the branch, which is very common for the bush willows. And if you look underneath the leaf here, there's just very light little russet or brownish colored hairs along the base of the leaf. And this tree itself grows generally on the sort of low-lying areas in the landscape here. And if you take these leaves off and you put them in boiling water and you steam them and you put a blanket over your eye, over your face, it will help you with any headaches. And as David will remember, also can be used for curing any conjunctivitis that you might have. And those of you who don't know what conjunctivitis is, David had it last year and we cured it. Conjunctivitis is in fact just another name for pink eye. I'm only joking, David didn't have it, but he did at least, I think that was my first medicinal Mondays, wasn't it, Davy? And he put the towel over his head, but he was very unwilling to try the enema that I had in store next, because that was just a little bit more awkward for our cameras. But anyway, Jamie is in the tent. I wonder what interesting information she has for us now.
It's the head on the right.
Alrighty, so we've got leaves abounding. Steve's been showing you, I couldn't actually see what he was actually showing you, but there were definitely leaves on it. And now we have a leaf with what of course appears to be a pile of poo. Perhaps something like a gecko or a bird dropping. Most of you by now know that this is one of the cleverest camouflage systems out here, because of course this is not a pile of poo. This is in fact a moth. And I don't know if you can even see it there, Seb. Can you see it?
Yes.
You can see the head there.
Yeah.
Angled towards the base of the leaf. And then its wings all folded up over there. And we're going to put it under the microscope because I can. And I have the microscope here for that exact reason. But isn't it absolutely extraordinary that nature can create something that at some point during this moth's evolutionary history, one of them was born that looked a little bit like a bird poo, and then it survived because it, looked a little bit like a poo. And then, slowly but surely, its offspring looked even more like poo, until eventually we were left with a moth that looks exactly like poo. Evolution is a marvelous, marvelous thing. Oh, the joys it presents us with. So there we go. We're going to pop you under the microscope. And I'm going to find focus as quickly as possible. And I will never be rude to the cameraman ever again, because it's surprisingly difficult and my stuff doesn't move. So there you go. You can just see its little legs poking out. And you can see the filaments of a sort of, it's got quite, I don't quite know what those are, fine protrusions. Oh, my finger looks really enormous next to that moth's head. It looks absolutely revolting. I'm going to go home and have a manicure immediately. No, I'm not. So all of that combined, I mean, when you look at it like this, I'm going to try and turn it sideways. there we go. When you look at it this way, it's really clear that it's a moth. But you have to have exceptional eyes in order to spot. Of course, we know what to look for because we do segments on bird poo moths basically every single bushwalk that we do. We don't very seldom actually put them underneath the microscope and have a look at them and marvel at the way that those different pigments are structured. Look at that. You can actually see they look like pixels. They really do. They look like pixels. They look square. Or little rectangular patches there. And all of that combines to give the overall effect of something that looks like feathers. It is really beautiful. It looks like a really low-res picture. It is amazing. I've never looked at one under the microscope before, but it looks like a low-resolution picture of, well, I don't know what you'd call it. Or what do you call?
Looks like a
Yes.
piece of stick as well.
A piece of, it does look like a branch, you're right. Seb says the top part looks a little bit like a stick of some description. I'm thinking of almost a mosaic, but not quite. You know when people make pictures out of smaller pictures? I don't know what that's called now. And the only thing I can think of to say is that they used it in the movie Love Actually, which is quite embarrassing because now I can't think exactly what you call that. But you make a picture out of lots of little pictures. Lily! Lily, happy birthday, Lily. Lily is now 8 years old. Lily, we've been thinking of you on your birthday. Now, Lily's not only looking at the moth, Lily's showing that she's looking at absolutely everything around the moth as well, and is looking at the hairs on the leaf and wants to know why it has hair, because that seems a bit silly for a leaf, doesn't it, Lily? That's sort of but odd. You don't really think of leaves or trees having hair. Well, let me tell you exactly why that is. And to do that, I'm going to fold the moth over. So we'll just move it away for a second. Now let me do that. And then I'm going to show you the underside of the leaf. Now, you can see there's even more hair on, let me flatten it out there, on the underside of the leaf. Now, Lily, the reason for that is that plants have to breathe as well. So you know how... Oh, hello, moth. Bye. Was nice knowing you. Farewell. Sorry, Lily, I got distracted. That happens to me quite a lot. Now, the underside of a plant's leaf, because a leaf has to breathe, you know that plants take in carbon dioxide and they give out oxygen through a process known as photosynthesis. But they also have to do lots of growing, just like you're doing at the moment, because you're doing more growing because of your age. So they have to do something known as respiration as well. So sometimes they use a bit of that oxygen to break it down, and they do the reverse process. But all of that requires a lot of different types of gases that you find in the air. Now, those gases enter through something, and I'm going to get a bit complex here, but Lily, I know you're bright enough to understand this also. Just let me explain it to you nice and simply. So, essentially, the underside of a leaf has got an opening, lots of tiny little openings known as stoma. But you don't need to know the name. That is not really important. All you need to know is that they've got these tiny, tiny holes, and they can open and close depending upon how hot it is. And the gases go through those holes and then back out of those holes. So kind of like the plant's lungs. When you breathe, you're breathing in oxygen and you're breathing out carbon dioxide. It's kind of like that. Now the hairs are there because it's really, really hot outside. So the plant, that's one of the ways in which the plant actually makes sure that it doesn't lose too much water while it's breathing. Because you know how if you breathe up against some glass, if you go against glass, you'll see that there's a little bit of water in your breath as well. The same goes for plants. Now, because it's so hot out here, the plant doesn't want to lose too much water. So that actually helps to keep the water in. It also helps it for tiny little caterpillars, maybe even the caterpillar of that moth that flew away. It also helps to make it quite difficult for them to get around and to eat the leaf. But because caterpillars have to eat, it doesn't always work that well. But you can think of the hairs. When you wash your hair, and if you don't dry it, if you don't blow dry it or anything like that, it stays wet for much, much longer than the other parts of your body, because the hair actually traps the moisture. And basically, long story short, Lily, happy birthday. That is why leaves have hairs on them. There's lots of different ways that the plants are able to stop animals from eating them, but most importantly, to make sure that they keep as much water inside as possible, because you know in the last few months how dry it's been. The plants never know when it's going to rain next. Well, that was a very, very good question from Lily. So there you go. Plant leaves, hairs. Of course, there's other ways that plants are adapted to keep their moisture in, whether it's surface area or a waxy surface, anything like that. Okay, we're going to go in search of other things since my moth flew away. And Tristan's wild dogs ran away as well. I wonder how he feels about that.
Indeed they did, Jamie. They ran far, far, far away, and we have come up with nothing else since. We've been trying to do loops around and trying to kind of check everywhere we can in order to try and find these dogs, but alas, I think it's going to be a failed mission this morning. Can't find really any signs now, and either they've run a very long way by now, or they're just lying up somewhere in the thicket and we just haven't been able to spot them yet. But hopefully this afternoon they will come out and about. I'm pretty sure they will. If I'm not on drive this afternoon, then generally they provide a decent sighting. I actually can't even remember the last time I had a long sighting of wild dogs. It certainly hasn't been any time in the lately. Oh, hello. Who are you and what have you been doing here? Now, there's tracks for leopards here. I'm just trying to see who it is and what kind of a leopard. Looks like a male leopard that's walked down here. Is it a male? Looks like it. Looks like it might have been squashed by a car too. So let's just see where they go. They go straight down the road by the looks of things, which is interesting. I'm not sure who this would be. Maybe it's the same individual that we had yesterday. We had a leopard male that's track that looked as though he was very, very skittish, because we were kind of driving along and we heard a Franklin alarm call, and we drove and we found the Franklin in the tree still shouting, and we looked and we saw leopard tracks, and then the tracks just ran from where we saw them. You could actually see the kind of sort of dust cloud as this leopard had run away. So maybe it's that skittish male that's been hanging around, the same one that was seen by Senzo and Lauren the other day when there was those mating leopards, Tandi and Tingana and Kalamba. There was a skittish male that was seen there too. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, I wonder if it's not him. I hope that he's not just trying to push into this area, because it would be a horrible thing if Tingana were to go away and then he chased Hosanna, and then on top of that was skittish. So that would not really be very fun at all. So I'm hoping that if he does stay, that we can start to get him to kind of relax a little bit and be a little bit more kind of viewable. Now, sorry, Stefan, I can't hear a thing. The wind is just so strong that it's impossible to actually hear what's going on. So I'm going to try and just see if I can hear, if you can repeat that for me. So, Paula, you're asking, when wild dogs are born, are they blind and deaf like domestic dogs? I think that's what I got from all of that. So Paula, yeah, when they're born, they are still very much... These tracks don't look that bad, actually. I mean, a vehicle has driven over them, but they look quite good. So they are exactly like domestic dogs in that regard. They're bound to a den site for the first few months, and you don't really see the puppies until they're sort of week old. Then they start to venture, and then the eyes start to open, and you can actually start to kind of get a sort of semblance of what they start to get a semblance of what their world is going to be like. But yeah, it takes a bit of time for them to kind of get into that position and to be able to start opening eyes and knowing what's going on around them. I'm sorry if I sound a bit distracted. These tracks are kind of going down the road, but somebody's definitely driven over them, except that I don't know of anyone driving here this morning, so I'm a bit worried about the fact that it might actually be for a vehicle that goes to Torchwood Camp might have driven over this. But let's just keep following. They're still going by the looks of things at the moment, which means that this leopard could still be around. The tracks look good though, they look fresh. I don't know if maybe Steve wasn't following tracks this side, I don't think. I think he was more around Shabamu side than he was here, but they seem to be still going on this left-hand side. Where did they go from there? It could very well be the same male. The tracks that we had yesterday were right here. They were very, very close to where we are now, so it could very well be the same individual. See, now the tracks look like they've cut off, but which way did they go is the question. Might have gone into Torchwood actually. Right, let's just quickly do a turn back there, just double check where they went. The problem is now I've driven over them, so it's not ideal, but I'm sure we can find one. It's a nice big road and easy to see tracks on. Definitely nothing coming further down, which indicates that this leopard is cut off somewhere, and like I say, which way that is, I'm not quite sure just yet. We'll try and kind of figure it out and find out exactly where he went. The last track that I had seemed to be somewhere over here. Just trying to double check which way, that he didn't go down Ledwood Road. Doesn't look like he went down Ledwood. No, nothing here. So I can't see where he's gone. Let me try and figure it out. I'm going to jump off here quickly and have a little bit of a look. In the meantime, though, I'm going to send you back across to Jamie in the tent.
Good luck, tourist. Good luck indeed. I hope you manage to find whatever animal you're looking for at this point, because I'm not sure if he's still on the tracks of the wild dogs. Now, we are having the best time in the tent. When I was a kid, the best part of going to school was, of course, biology, obviously. And I think when we were asked about our favorite subjects the other day, I don't even know what the interview was for, but we were asked about our favorite subjects, and every single one of us said biology. So it's obviously a shared fascination that we all have. And the best part was being able to use the microscope and use the different lenses. And of course, when I was growing up, my dad actually taught me to use a microscope, because he was a pathologist. Now, what we have here was found by our very own Seb, and it was the home of a spider. It is now abandoned quite recently, judging by the condition of the web. It is in a very, very good condition. I'm not sure which spider it is, but unfortunately she is no longer in occupation. But it is just that I'm marveling at the design that nature presents us with. These beautiful silk home that's been created, folding the leaf in to create. So what would have happened is this would actually have been closed like this, and the spider's web would have kept it safe and tucked away from predators. Now, what we know from here, is that this spider most likely is an active hunter. So she returns here to store her food, but essentially this is her home, and then she moves out during the day. And I suppose a he as well, but it's more likely a she will go off in search of food. So there's different approaches. Obviously, there's spiders that build giant catchment webs, and there are those that actively, like the baboon spider or the jumping spiders, that go out hunting themselves. And then you've got the sort of the in-between, that amazing sighting that Steve had with the community nest spiders and I think it was the dung beetle. Whatever it was absolutely extraordinary. Now what I'm going to do, because it's here, is I'm going to pop this under the microscope because, well, we are desperately searching for anything to, keep our knowledge fresh within the tent itself. There we go. It was thoroughly nondescript, actually. There's some silk, and that is all I can tell you. It is blowing in the wind ever so slightly. I want to be able to see into the tunnel itself, but I don't think I can. Maybe if I do this. Okay, hold on. I'm going to move the microscope, so I'm going to take the microscope out. Let me do this. And then I am going to give you all motion sickness if you're still looking at the microscope. No, that's not going to work. Okay. I'm trying to look down in through the tunnel, but I don't know that Seb can really. I've got to sort of open it up there. I want to see if there's any food in there, but I can't see what Seb's seeing, and no, this isn't going to work, is it? No. Well, let's break it open then. There's no one home. She's not around. Tracy, I have absolutely no idea, unfortunately, because I haven't seen the spider herself. I don't know which spider this is. Collection of dirt and so on means that nobody's home. So let's just have a look-see. I'm actually going to feel horribly guilty if she is in there. I don't think she is. I'm looking to see if there's any food or anything in there. There doesn't look like it. I think we're okay. I think it's been broken open already. Let's have a look. I'm using a little piece of tortoise shell. Wow, that's sticky. Sure. Obviously, it's spider silk. All I'm really... there... Oh, hold on. Panic. Baby spider, Seb.
Oh.
Baby spiders, it's a spider's nest. Oh dear.
Lauren's worst nightmare.
Lauren's worst nightmare. Shall we put this in a room when we're done? Shame. Lauren and spiders are not very happy with each other. It's a tiny baby spider's nest. And they've only just started to grow. Okay, what I'm going to do is we're going to have a quick look under the microscope, and then I'm going to put it back together. And I'm going to put it back where I found it. I feel sincerely... Oh, there's a load of them. Hi, babies. Are you cute? Yes, you're cute. Hold on. Microscope's gone a bit funny. Where is it? There. Hold on. Don't you be... There's a whole load of these little things. There we go. There's a tiny baby. I think they're jumping spiders. I think they're baby jumping spiders. Oh, I feel terrible. I had absolutely no idea that they were still in occupation. There's a whole load of little things. Cool. I mean, it's fascinating and I've learned something, but I do feel a little bad. Yeah, let me just focus in on where the main body of the nest is. There's a whole heap of them in there. Look at them staring at us. Look at them go. Oh, cool.
Those eyes, yeah.
Look at those eyes.
So cool.
That is so cool. All right, I'm so sorry, little babies. I'm going to tuck you back up into your nest, and I'm going to go put you back where I found you, and I'm going to hope for the best. I had no idea. Whoa, look at them go. Look how beautiful they are. They look like little jumping spiders to me, but they are absolutely magnificent. I wonder how many there are in there. I would guess about 10, maybe 20. Hello. Morning. Hello, hello. You are adorable. Oh, wow. Ha! That is absolutely magic. It's a spider nursery. Wow. Cool. Seb's also equally as intrigued as I am. This is amazing. Okay, shame. Alright, I'm going to take them out from under the microscope. Oh, they're just coming out of every... Let me take them out and fold them back up again. Sorry, guys. Sorry. I had no idea you were in here. I thought this was abandoned. There you go. Tucked up. Julie says it's pretty cool. Oh, there's one on the outside. There's a whole load of little exoskeletons in here. Okay, there you go. We'll just put it back where we found it. Julie says it's very cool. It is really cool. I'm absolutely intrigued. I'm just I need a stapler. Oh, Karen's making me feel even worse. Karen says cover them up because they're getting cold. Okay, I have an idea. It'll stick. I think the web will stick. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to exit the tent. Oh, I'm going to fall over Seb's cable. And then I'm going to find a little stick. And I'm just going to poke it through here. Voila! As good as new. No one will ever know except everybody who've just watched this. Sorry. Total accident. I did not mean to disturb a nest of babies. You know, there's going to be tweets saying #SafariLive. Jamie doesn't like babies. She likes to pull them out of bed. Oh, I'm sorry, little guys. Okay. Let me return them. Which tree did this come from now? That bush over there, yes. Let's go put you back there. Sorry, little spider. It was awesome, though. I mean, it really was. That was very cool. They look like tiny little baby jumping spiders. Okay. You were there. Windy. Okay, well, good luck, little spiders. There you go. Fortunately, I'm not worried too much about them because, of course, there's very, very few spiders that invest a lot of time in their offspring. So there's no mother that's going to come home frantically and go, where have my babies gone? Her job is now done. Okay, I'm going to go try and find something that I'm not going to torment. Let's see whether or not Steve is feeling tormented about the quiet morning.
Well, how interesting is that, little spiderlings on the nest? I have got only one word for you out there, ladies and gentlemen. Arachnophobia. I quite like spiders, but I know lots of people get a little bit of a chill when they encounter them, especially when there's lots of them moving, these little chills down the spine. But anyway, James Hendry is watching, and he gave me some information and said there's very few reported cases of rabies in herbivores, with scrub hares being the exception. So I find that very interesting. So not really any cases of them documented of normal herbivores getting rabies, but apparently there are some. So very definitely going to have to do some reading up about that. And then with regards to rabies, if you do contract it as a human, there is post-exposure prophylaxis that can be taken. It's 6 consecutive injections that need to be taken over a very specific time period, and you can't miss them. I think they're quite expensive as well, but better that than your brain going completely mad. Because back in the day, I mean, I don't know how long this exposure or these 6 injections have been around for, but I remember reading books many, many years ago of people getting rabies, and well, there was just nothing you could do about it back then. You just basically watch your friend go mad. Not the nicest of ways to die, I don't think. But anyway, that was just to touch back on again on the diseases that we spoke about earlier. Definitely a very interesting topic, and I do need to do a bit more reading up about it, because well, it's nice to know where this all comes from. But anyway, we jumped into Torchwood for a very brief moment, see if we could hopefully stumble across Thandi and found those tracks, which are from yesterday morning most likely, and well, we didn't manage to find anything, so we're just popping out again at the bottom of Torchwood. Tristan suggested we check the fire break around Cheetah Cut Line. He says we might be lucky somewhere around there. There was a male leopard track that Aubrey had been following this morning, but seemingly has lost the tracks. So we might just be lucky, bumbling along the road to come across a leopard, but it's also possible that the tracks that they're following is of a skittish male that has materialized on and off the last couple of months. We haven't really managed to film him or get him on screen. He was a male leopard that definitely poses an enormous threat to the life of Tlalamba, and Tingana needs to come and sort him out, because she has moved and spends most of her time here in the Torchwood. And I know the other day Lauren had Tingana mating with Thandi. Tlalamba was somewhere nearby, and then this very skittish, strange leopard just materialized. Okay, well, here are some leopard tracks of a female. These are much fresher than what I've been looking at, and they're heading behind us now. You can see them over here. There we go. Female leopard, and they're going the direction we've just come from. So we're going to probably just turn around and see where these have gotten to. They're not that fresh, but it's hard to tell when the wind is blowing like this. These are definitely not as fresh as the male leopard tracks we were following earlier this morning, which are obviously, they seemed to be quite steamingly hot, in the term that we... Oh, what's that? Oh, very good. There's a little buzzard over there. Looks like a common buzzard in the tree. We'll have to get a closer look at him. I think it's a common buzzard. No feathers on the legs. Quite a mottled brown coloration. Very small beak. Let's take a screenshot or two of that and investigate. And it's hashtag SafariLive if you know what bird that is. I might have given you the answer. I might have been talking nonsense. But while we wait for your answers, let's go back over to Tristan for an update.
Right, now Steve is on leopard tracks. Unfortunately, the leopard tracks we couldn't follow any further because Steve is inside Torchwood, which I didn't know. And so we've left those for him to follow up. They look fairly good. Hopefully he'll be able to find that leopard and kind of move around. Well, hopefully it's one of the leopards we know, and not a skittish one that's going to just keep running away from everybody. But the tracks look quite good, so I'm sure that leopard's not far. Nothing crossed Gowrie Main, so it must still be in that small section between the sort of fire break on Torchwood and Cheetah Cut Line, that sort of area. So hopefully he'll be able to find it. But essentially we have had zero luck. We've tried to even put birds on screen. Every time I stop for a bird, they fly away with this wind, and I just think everything's a little bit on the skittish side. And so nothing's really sitting still, which is becoming a little bit of an issue. Certainly kind of making life a little bit difficult. The only nice thing is that we have the most brilliant blue sky and greenery this morning, which is always good. It's aesthetically pleasing on the eye, and so I suppose that can lift one's spirits, as opposed to just kind of seeing very few animals. Sometimes it's nice just to be bumbling about. It really would be pleasant if there was no wind. If there was no wind, it would be a beautiful day. It wouldn't be too hot, but it would be kind of just the perfect conditions to be out. But the wind is really ruining things quite a lot this morning, and so unfortunately ended up with a very quiet morning and just brief glimpses of things that keep flying away or running away or moving away. One sad thing is that when we went past Chitwa Dam and we kind of then saw that wild dog and we were going after the dog, I noticed that the little baby hippo carcass is there and the crocs were busy eating on it. And then when I went back past again, I couldn't see exactly where the crocs had gone, and the carcass was kind of very obscured and in a sort of part of the dam that couldn't really see much of what was going on. It was just a kind of little sort of hump that was there, which was a bit sad to see. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, there was a little baby hippo that was killed by a male hippo at Chitwa Dam. It's a tiny little baby, and the crocs, I'm surprised there's still anything left of it, because it was killed not yesterday, the day before in the evening. And like I say, I'm really surprised that the crocs haven't finished it already. Now what we're doing at the moment is we're just driving slowly to the west, all the way along the fire break on the southern side, and there's a reason for this, is that I had a report that Shadulu was moving towards Triple M, but it sounds like just south of Gari Main, but it's an off chance that maybe she turns north and heads on to Djuma, and so we're just going to try and kind of position ourselves in case that is the case. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think we've got enough time for that to happen, but it's worth a try and worth just trying to get one into a place where maybe we can get it right. So there's an animal. Goodness gracious me, it's going to snow. So there in front of us is a kudu. In fact, there are two kudus there, but there is one that is kind of easily seen. And this is a female that is just lying down and ruminating. In fact, it's a very young female. It's still quite a small kudu, that one, but it's got massive, massive ears. And these guys must have a really tricky time when it's windy like this, because you can imagine those big ears, how sensitive they are to sound. And I'm sure all of you know, when you're in a lot of wind, that your ears take a bit of punishment, and you can't really hear what's going on. And so for these guys with those massive ears like that, it must be really kind of tricky to be able to actually hear what's going on, and also just be highly irritating to have that wind noise constantly going through. But you'll notice that they do have quite a bit of fur on the sort of edges and kind of parts of the ear, and that will just help a little bit with breaking that wind, and so that it's not as bad. Now you'll notice it's also chewing, so it's ruminating at the moment. Given the windy conditions, I suppose sitting still close to an open kind of section like a fire break is a really good place to be able to watch out for predators, one, and two, to be able to kind of just process some of the food that you've managed to get during the course of the night, and try and stay as safe as possible by kind of being out in the open and yet still gain a few nutrients, which is quite nice. I thoroughly enjoy spending time with kudus. They are very, very cool animals. Beautiful, beautiful creatures with that kind of white on their rumps and their sides, and then, you know, the white of little lips that they've got. And you'll notice that they're quite aware of what's going on, even when they're lying down. Now, why have you all of a sudden got a fright, kudu? It's just an impala. So there's an impala that's coming out from behind the termite mound, and there's a kudu got a massive fright because of the male impala. So you can see him just behind the mound there. He's kind of sticking out a little bit towards the sort of, oh no, he's disappeared a bit. You'll just kind of see him on the left side there. You might be able to just see the movement. So that's what gave that kudu a fright, is a male impala that was kind of sneaking around. Maybe it thought that there was a leopard on its way to come and eat it. But don't worry, you're all right, you're safe. Everything is okay. Good. I think we shall leave our kudu. Well, we're going to bypass our kudus, because I want to be able to just try and see if we can get into that sort of corner and try and get an update quickly. Now, Wendy's not doing well. There we go. All right. The clutch is not in great kind of condition at the moment. I think, unfortunately, we've probably lost quite a bit of clutch fluid. That's what it feels like anyway. So we'll just try and see. So Hunter, difficult in the females. Males is a little bit easier because the males obviously grow horns, and depending on the sort of length of the horns can give you an age indication and how many turns they've got. Whereas the females, not as easy. You've got to go more on size, and that's always tricky because obviously there's certain individuals that are slightly bigger than others, and you know, so it's tricky in females. Those ones there were not going to be easy to age and to be able to give you an accurate day. Sort of. Oh no, I wanted to show you a squirrel because it's International Squirrel Day, or Appreciation Day, but it ran away. Why is everything running away from us today? It's frustrating. Where did you go, squirrel? I saw you. It was on top of the mound, kind of sunbathing, and now it's gone. Oh well. Fine, be like that. You don't want to be appreciated on your own day, then we won't appreciate you. We'll leave you there and let you just not get any airtime. Naughty squirrel. It's not very kind of that squirrel at all. Just left us for dead there, really. I'm trying to put one on all morning, but none of them seem to be wanting to cooperate. And I finally thought we had found one that, because it's sitting on a nice mound and sunny, that it would sit still, but alas, it isn't. Right, now I'm going to carry on towards the southwestern corner, see what I can find. In the meantime, though, off you go back to Jamie, and she's now left the ticks alone, but is busy playing around with, well, a caterpillar.
A really, really beautiful caterpillar. Again, absolutely no idea which species this belongs to. Caterpillars can be very, very difficult when we look at their different shapes and sizes. But it also sort of, it brings me to the conversation that I was having with Lily. Now, Lily was asking about why leaves are hairy, and I said that the leaves have different ways of protecting themselves. Caterpillars do as well. So in this case, this caterpillar looks as though it would be a prime target for something to eat. Wait, stay where you were. There you were. There he is. Ah, attack. It's got the most awesome head and little casing around the head to protect it. Now, as he moves a little bit further off this leaf, which I think he might not, so I'm just going to give him a little nudge in the right direction. What it has at the moment is something sticking out of its tail. There you go. That spike over there is, I think, for one of two reasons. It's either to look like a sting of a wasp or something like that, or potentially it's to stop itself from being parasitized. There's species of wasp that parasitize caterpillars, and everybody's stolen this piece of information from me, including Brent. That when caterpillars are parasitized by wasps, they often get these little growths coming out of their bodies, and that's the larvae popping out. So there we go. He's wandered off outside of the microscope, but he's all over the show. And by having little imitation sort of extensions like the dice moth caterpillar, then they are able to mimic that effect so that the wasp thinks that it has already been parasitized and there's no point to parasitizing it further. Now compare that to this one over here. So we're going to just do a switch around. You can go over there. You can go under there. You can stay where I put you, little beetle. No, leaf. I'm trying to keep track of all my little things that I've got to show you under the microscope. There's a beetle that's trying to beetle you off. There you go. Now compare it to this extraordinarily hairy caterpillar. Now most of you know that those tiny fine hair spines actually embed themselves in the skin and cause a tremendous amount of itching. Now there's someone out here who, generally speaking, gets the worst of it, and that is Brent. He has some sort of bizarre attraction when it comes to hairy caterpillars. They fall down his shirt on a rather regular basis. Now, I haven't actually been hairy caterpillared in a long time. Now, there's one of the weird explanations that was put forward by a biologist who rapidly got put in their place about why it is that cuckoos are brood parasites. And that is because their diet primarily consists of hairy caterpillars. And so it was thought that the offspring actually wouldn't be able to stomach or swallow something with those nasty spines on it. And so it was suggested that they had to leave their eggs in other birds' nests because their food source wasn't suitable for a tiny growing chick. Now that, of course, was quickly rejected by a lot of other biologists who said, well, orioles also eat a lot of hairy caterpillars at that time of year, and they don't parasitize nests either. So it's just one of those things of two different type of defense mechanisms. So one's got a very hairy body, one's got a mimicked spike. Some caterpillars have bright colors to suggest that they are toxic and that they should not be eaten. It's called aposmetic coloration. And then lastly, lastly, before he escapes, look how pretty that guy is. It's been crawling up my sleeve, gradually making its way towards my shoulder. I'm not even going to try put it under the microscope because it's going to move so fast that I think it's just going to be almost impossible for us to keep track of. Now, what I'm going to do, for those of you that are concerned, is I'm going to, at the end of this safari, go and put everything back exactly where I found it, so we haven't disrupted them. But I only have 20 more seconds to spend within your company. Thank you so much for joining us, for putting up with the gremlins, and of course sending through your questions and your comments. We'll see you on this afternoon's sunset safari. Who knows what we'll find then. See you then.